Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had a Ryukyu Quirk part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story at 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Prologue. Several months ago, Ryukyu 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 asked politely, "Oh, what are you doing here?" The dragoon hero, Ryukyu. Aside from a name that isn't Miruko, this hero has been an icon for all heroines and heroines in training. Her actions spoke 10,000 words with the power of a humble woman, headstrong will, and a cool demeanor that didn't melt underneath the smoldering pressure of a dangerous situation. Where others would crumble, she would hold against the crippling weight. Where others would drown, Ryukyu would turn the tide of a tsunami onslaught. She didn't let fear get the best of her, because if she did, then good is it in being a hero if you're afraid to take the leap into the unknown. A trait she's picked up from doing several sporadic patrols alongside Miruko. Currently at 26 years old and ranking in the number 13 spot in the hero billboard, she's the second highest ranking female in all of Japan. Although there were times where she feels like she doesn't deserve to be in the 13th spot, the people still see her as someone worthy of being higher up in the rankings. Potentially even being higher than Miruko herself, though nobody ever said that in the face of the rabbit hero, lest they wanted their own soul to be kicked into oblivion. But while people were admirable of Ryukyu, some were also afraid of her. Mainly due to the cold exterior she displayed to the public because of her seemingly always neutral face. She wasn't cold-hearted or mean, she was actually very friendly and warm to anybody who socialized with her. Ryukyu turned her ally and gave a gentle curl of her lips. "I'm 𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟. It's a pleasure to see you here. As for me being here, there were several agencies patrolling my regular area, so I thought it'd be a commodity to attend this sports festival. Never been to one in the past before. And you? Pulling a lame security job for them. Really boring. Nothing happening at all aside from a bird taking a poop on somebody's car." Ryukyu chuckled. "Yes, because a winged animal is much more interesting than the safety of those inside. You know what I mean?" "I do. I've had my fair share of security in the past as well." "Hi Ryukyu." A couple of citizens passed by the hero, awkwardly waving at her. Ryukyu waved back with a gentle motion. "Are you by yourself, 𝗧𝗟𝗟𝗘? "Nope. Kamui Woods and Death Arms are here with me as well. Though I think those two have gone inside the stadium to do their rounds. I haven't seen them in the last half hour." "That's optimal. Cover more ground in that manner. Besides, you have much potential for a hero your age. No doubt you can take care of the outside by yourself." 𝗧𝗟𝗟𝗘 twirled a finger through her hair in nervousness. "Thanks. That actually means a lot. Especially from someone like you." "Nonsense. I am only stating the facts that stand before me. You are capable enough on your own. Plus, I'm not that great either. I still have a ways to go in my career. One cannot climb the ladder of success if their hands are in their pockets." "Ryukyu." A familiar voice caught her attention on the left side as she gladly rotated to the source. An 𝗓𝗡𝗏 intercontinental Hado missile came soaring towards her, the third year airborne thanks to her wave motion acting like a propulsion system on her hands. Hado deactivated her quirk and landing on her feet in a slight rebound in front of her mentor. "Oh hi Ryukyu." "Hello Hado. It's lovely to see you here. Are you also participating in the sports festival?" "Oh no. I'm actually just a part of the audience. Today is for the first years to show off what they're made of. The second and third years are tomorrow and the next days." "I see. Well, I'll be sure to attend the day of the third years. I expect to see great feats performed by you. Boom!" A heavy rumble made the ground beneath them shake with ease, the crowd inside resonating in a series of cheers. "What the? Are we being attacked?" 𝗧𝗟𝗟𝗘 said. "Whoa." Hado awed. She pointed off in a direction near the stadium to a massive cloud of pink dust fuming upwards. "Check that out." "What in the world? Are you kidding me?" The voice of Present Mike exploded through the PA system. "I cannot believe we just witnessed something serious." "What exactly happened?" Ryukyu questioned. "I guess something pretty cool happened in the minefield section of the obstacle course." Hado replied. And I missed it too. Show me that replay, son. A massive screen built into the side of the stadium flickered on for anybody on the outside to bear witness. 𝐻𝗏, Ryukyu, and 𝐒𝐮𝐲 all turned their gaze to watch the replayed event of what exactly happened. It showed the backside of a young man wearing the PE uniform of 𝗂, digging into the soft ground with a metallic limb of a robot. He seemed to be collecting mounds of what looked like giant green discs into one place, the numbers nearing around 10 or more. Once enough had been collected, he took a step back, slammed the limb against the pile of landmines and exploded forward, the screen covered in a blanket of pink. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿ady scoffed. That's pretty convenient. Convenient. That's remarkable. Ryukyu replied. Who would have thought to use the own dangers in front of them as a method to advance further into the race? Very well done by that participant. Wait a minute. 𝐻𝗏 muttered to herself with her fingers over her forehead. Think, what was his name again? Right? IzukuxRyukyu. No wait. 𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗓𝗓. No, that's not it either. Well, ladies and gentlemen, your first place winner of this year's obstacle course for the first years, IzukuxRyukyu of Class 1A, Midoriya. That's his name. I knew it all along. IzukuxRyukyu. Interesting. Do you by chance know what his quirk is, 𝐻𝗏? Sadly, I don't. But from what I've heard, apparently it's super, duper strong. He took out a 0-pointer robot in the entrance exam by himself, and I'll be the one to say that those robots are very tough. It takes a lot of power to take one of those down. Ryukyu tapped a finger against her chin like a percussionist. She pondered over the thought of just how capable he can be in the world of heroes, and just how much he can bring to the table. Somebody with tremendous power also had to be somebody who must learn how to utilize that power for the betterment of this world. Similar to All Might now. What ya thinking about? 𝐒𝐮𝐿ady asked. It's just the beginnings of a thought, but maybe, just maybe, I think he could do well at my agency. Wow, really? 𝐻𝗏 gleefully said. Again, it's just a thought. But it doesn't hurt to have more trainees underneath my wing. I like a challenge. By the way, 𝐻𝗏. Yes. What's next after the obstacle course? Well, everybody gets a short break first, then after that it's the cavalry race. How long is the break? About an hour or so. Excellent. Ryukyu confidently smiled, the gears of her mind moving with fluidity. I think I'd like to pay a quick visit to this Midoriya. See what a potential trainee holds for me in the future. Okie dokie, artichoke. 𝐻𝗏 spun a single 𝐶𝐻𝗧𝗟 with her direction set for the stadium. Bye, 𝐒𝐮𝐿ady. Later. 𝐒𝐮𝐿ady happily smiled at the student before turning to the heroine. Gonna take him in for the internship? Maybe. It depends on where his heart is. I'm not going to take an egotistical powerhouse underneath my tutorship. I have better methods to spend my... I bet you do. Being the number 13 hero isn't an easy job, I bet. Nothing is ever easy. If it were, then there wouldn't be such a thing as heroes and villains. Ryukyu glanced at 𝐒𝐮𝐿ady with a peace sign in her fingers. Until we meet again. Why? 𝐒𝐮𝐿ady gave a peace sign in return. I'll see you around. She watched Ryukyu stroll away towards the stadium, following behind her trainee. When out of earshot range, she mentally freaked out with a fangirl persona. Oh my gosh. My idol just gave me a peace sign. When has Ryukyu ever given anybody else a peace sign? 𝐻𝗏 joyously skipped along the hallways as she hummed in her throat to a song. Ryukyu followed silently behind, preparing a few questions to ask of the young student she's going to meet very shortly. Karma, chameleon, you come and go, you come and go. Ryukyu raised her left eyebrow to her disciple. That song is very old. Where did you even hear that tune? The radio. Of course. It's always the radio. Ryukyu observed her surroundings, taking note of the intricate design that made up the tunnel system of the stadium. I must say I never expected the stadium to be this intricately built. Temp medical rooms, waiting rooms, meeting area for private conversation. Funding definitely isn't on the short side. Yep. And it gets better too. Apparently there's rumors going around that a dorm system is going to be placed on our own campus. Oh my. Any particular reason why? Nobody knows. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗡 shrugged. Again, they're just rumors, but they might come true later on. That's going to be super fun if it is true. Correct, but at the same time it presents a new sense of danger. Ryukyu plastered on a serious face. With the students all living in the same quarters, it's going to be much easier for the villains to target their attacks if they do. There would be no need to worry about missing if all of the targets are confined into one location. I do not question Principal Nizu's reasoning if the dorms are in fact built, but I will question on how he'll proceed with the security system of the institute. Hound dog alone will not be enough. Don't worry. We're heroes. We'll give him the ol' smackdowneroo on them, they're villains. WPOW. Ryukyu chuckled at 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘's bubble nature. Confidence is a double-edged sword, 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. Be wary in which direction you swing the blade. Here we are. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 hopped up repeatedly in front of a single closed door with her hands outstretched to the entryway. A sign attached to the wall over the door read as 1A in white with a black outline over the letter and number. From inside can be heard the barely audible and muffled voices of various students having a conversation about who knows what. This is his waiting room. Well then, wouldn't want to keep him waiting any longer now, do we? Alright, let's do this. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 put on a game face as she spit on both of her hands. She rubbed them together, pulled them behind and moved them at the door with the palms facing out. Open, Sesame. 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. Please tell me you did not attempt to open the door in the same manner as a pink starfish? Maybe. Click the door's latch clicked open, with the door itself slightly 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 creaking wood. What the who opened the door? 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 slightly gasped as she used her upper teeth to bite her bottom lip, trying not to squeal out in excitement. Ryukyu very much questioned whether or not this event actually happened right before her own eyes. But much more heroic matters were at hand. Clearing her throat, she straightened herself up as much as she could before reaching for the handle and pulling it open. Revealed inside was an entire class of first years who all awed and wooed at the sight of her. Two of them, both being male, gave each other a thumbs up with slight trails of droll falling down the corner of their lips. Good afternoon. Ryukyu started. I am the Dragoon hero, Ryukyu. It is my pleasure to be here before you all as an acquaintance and pro-hero. If I may ask, is there a student here by the name of IzukuxRyukyu? Nobody answered or gestured to another, which slightly made her downtrodden, worried that they might be afraid of her and the cold exterior she normally displayed. Though she wouldn't need an answer to figure who is who, because sitting at one of the tables was a young man whose face took an immediate turn of a color palette and falling into the deep end of a red tone. She turned to see it was the same set of green hair that the camera displayed of the replay from the obstacle course. I assume you are Midoriya. Weiss, he said shakily. She furrowed her eyebrows and thought to herself. His demeanor is very nervous and shaky. There's no display of an attitude that says he can be comfortable in a public setting. Maybe this is a mistake. She smiled on the outside and raised a hand to the students. Wonderful. I just wanted to know if it was in fact you, the same person that destroyed a zero-pointer enemy in his entrance exam. That's all. Good luck to everyone for the rest of the festival. Ryukyu waved at the students before turning heel and making for the door. Once outside, she pushed the door shut, revealing 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 with her mouth practically hitting the floor. That's it. Ryukyu hummed. If he was smart enough to utilize a pile of mines to advance further into the race, then no doubt he's a quick thinker. But his attitude and emotional display on the outside is far too subnominal. Too nervous and too inferior. So what now? I still think Midoriya could potentially be a great hero in the near future, but as of right now I believe it's too early to take him in my agency. I'll continue to monitor him and any events in which he takes part in, but for now I think it's best to let him grow. Let him hone his nervousness into confidence. Until then, my target is set. We will meet again, Midoriya. I assure you we will. Part 1, Present Time, Power. Oh. Midoriya groaned with face onto the solid floor and body scrunched into the fetal position. His core area felt as if it was on the verge of exploding in a burst of searing pain, but he wasn't the only one feeling this same sensation. Practically all of 1A with the exception of 2 students were all laid out on the floor after suffering an embarrassing loss at the hands of 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘, 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 being his hero alias. Not even lasting past 5 minutes, the entire roster of 1A were decimated with single vital hits to their abdomen areas. Bleg. He heard the sound of Ojiro throwing up behind him, making himself retch and covering his mouth, not wanting to the same as his classmate. This entire ordeal was to provide a clear showing of what work studies can entail for those who participate in them, but it just felt like they were all bullied with the permission of Mr. Aizawa. This wasn't a demonstration of how far he can go. It was a demonstration of how far he has left to go. If he can't even throw down with a single opponent, albeit the peak of UA's hero class, then he may as well forget jumping into a ring full of villains and tussling with them. Throughout the entire duration, Midoriya has noticed something. It was just barely noticeable in the very corner of his peripheral vision, but thanks to her vibrant color palette it wasn't too difficult to pass over. He noticed that Hato had her eyes on him the whole way through. There were a few times where he had his back turned to her, so it was possible that in those moments her vision drifted elsewhere to a different point of interest. But whenever she was in his field of view, he would always see the royal blue irises looking back at him. Watching, observing, inspecting. Thinking about her now made him turn to her as she stood on the very edge of the arena alongside her other classmate, Amajiki. Their eyes met, which caused Hato to smile and gently wave at him. She did so the entire time their eyes were locked, which made him feel awkward and uneasy. He wanted to smile back and return the gesture, but at the same time he was still dealing with the after effects of a Togata beatdown, and it pained him just to even squirm in the slightest. Instead he merely wobbled a crooked smile, making Hato giggle at the sight. "Oh yeah," Togata cheered. "Chalk another one up for the Grim Reaper of Justice." "Wait, that's not my line." The door leading into the 1A dorm building opened up with a horde of groggy students shambling inside like zombies. Kirishima and Siro were among the first ones to enter, the former face planting himself over the side of the couch and onto the soft cushioning of furniture. Kirishima groaned, his voice muffled thanks to the couch. "So tired." Siro slung the straps of his backpack off and tossed the bag beside the reclining chair. He took a seat and immediately slumped down into potato mode. If that's how work studies are going to be, I think I'll pass." "Did he have to punch us really strong?" Ashido whined with both of her arms across her stomach. "I think it was done so in the manner to simulate that villains won't hold anything against us out on the field," Yaoyorozu said sluggishly. "But at the same time, please do not speak of food around me." "Whoa, check this out," Kaminari exclaimed with a slip of paper he retrieved from the mail on the kitchen counter. "They sent us a coupon for a discount on a large pepperoni pizza. With buffalo sauce." Yaoyorozu's cheeks puffed out with an unwelcome substance inside as she covered her mouth with a hand. She bolted for the women's restroom, nearly knocking the door off its hinges, followed by the sounds of somebody retching and heaving up the contents of their stomach. "Oops. Hey, Deku," Uraraka asked queasily. "Enyo, any idea on where you want to do your work studies?" "Off the top of my head, not really," Midoriya replied. "A lot of factors tie into choosing which hero to fall under. First, they have to be willing to even consider taking us on. It's not going to be like our internships where the heroes come to us. Secondly, it's going to be somewhat difficult to balance schoolwork with the workout on the field. I think that just because we actually choose to do work studies doesn't mean Mr. Aizawa will ease up with the material he gives us. Lastly, I don't even know who to choose from." "Well, why not just choose the same hero you were an intern with earlier in the year? What his name? Gran Tornado? Gran Torino? Maybe that's not such a bad idea. Busy." Midoriya retrieved his phone from the left side pocket of his, wondering as to who may be contacting him. He scrunched his face to see an unknown number on his screen with no contact picture. "Excuse me, Uraraka. I'll see what this phone call is about." "Sure, no problem. See you around, Deku." The two students waved each other off with himself heading in the direction of the dorm elevator. The phone continued to vibrate in his hand as he tapped the answer button on the screen. "Hello. Yes, is this Izuku Midoriya?" A young female's voice asked on the other end. Who is this? My name is Ms. Hoshiko of the Ryukyu Hero office. I'm her secretary. He took a sharp inhale of breath to his lungs. Ryukyu, the same hero that questioned him months ago during the sports festival on whether or not he defeated a massive training bot during the exam. But he never got to ask for her reasoning due to her leaving immediately after. The entire room exploded in a series of questions, comments, and wonders on what that ordeal was about. It's not every day the number 13 hero at that time just walks in and walks right out so leisurely. Two of the boys even questioned the other on how big the tag had to be on her BR size. Midoriya swallowed the lump in his throat before continuing. Ryukyu. As in, the Dragoon hero herself Ryukyu. Yes, that is correct, but before we continue I do have one question for you. Well, actually it's two questions, but they're both simple. The first is, do you plan on participating in work studies? Sort of. I don't really know which hero to study under though. I have a lot of options I need to consider. Splendid. And the second is, are you available today? Today. Like, how soon today? Today as in right now today. On the roof today. This moment today. Confused to her words, Midoriya held the device in front of his face with a look of weird emotions. She was very quick with her sentences and they held the right amount of sincerity behind him to let him know she was serious. But what exactly did him being on the roof have anything to do with initiating work studies? That answer would be hidden until he followed her orders. Not even bothering for the much slower elevator, he made for the staircase located beside the elevator. His core still hurt from earlier thanks to Togata, so hopefully whatever is going to happen next didn't take too long or be stressful. He'd like to perform some stretches in his room later on to make the pain go away. But even still, Ryukyu, the secretary herself called him, and in seemingly perfect timing as well. Just when he was thinking about work studies, he just so happened to receive a phone call about the same subject. It was so perfect, yet at the same time coincidental. Almost too coincidental to the point where it's not. Luckily, the trip up the staircase didn't take long as he found himself at the top within several short minutes. He pushed the door outwards and was met with the cool breeze of an afternoon Japan. The winds brushed against his exposed neck and weaving in between each individual strand of his hair. Ms. Hoshiko. I'm on the roof now, but there's nobody up here. Excellent. Continue staying on the roof for now. Until we meet in person, Midoriya. Oh, and by the way, try not to die. Beep hello. He called out to the phone, but no answer. The line had disconnected on her end. Confused as to what's going on, he looked around to find any sort of a presence around him, with nothing there. Even more confused was her words at the very end. Don't die. He had no clue as to what that could possibly mean. That was until he finally noticed a large shadow closing in on his position from behind and above. The shadow was titanic compared to him, with wings flapping in heavy movements. It eclipsed his entire body as he turned around only to be met with giant claws spread out to snatch him. Kaminari hummed to himself as he stared at the kitchen counter with a hand over his chin. A light smack made his head slightly bob forward, the culprit being none other than his favorite person to be constantly teased by. Now what are you thinking about, idiot? Jiro asked. Trying to think between the pepperoni pizza with wings, or the cheeseburger with fries and onion rings. Both of those sound really greasy and gross. Is that why you're so stupid majority of the time? Because your thoughts can't seem to find their footing in all of that grease they're swimming in. Leave me alone, I'm hungry. Jiro perked her head up with ear jacks pointing upwards. The hell was that? It sounded like somebody was screaming. Help me. The duo turned to the windows to see a massive dragon arching down to ground with a human in their grasp. That human turned out to be Midoriya as he flailed in between the claws in an attempt to free himself, but to no avail. His voice grew distant as the dragon carried him away into the void. Help me, Sue, we're just going to ignore the fact that we both saw Midoriya get scooped up by a huge dragon and probably going to get slaughtered? Jiro asked. Should we say something to Mr. Aizawa? Kaminari replied. Jiro opened her mouth to say something, but a growl in her stomach made her thought process cease and focus on something to satiate her hunger. She thought about how the dragon flapped its wings in a slow momentum, the force sending gusts of air onto the ground. Wings. You know, I think pizza with wings sounds better. Me too, 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 careful as to not potentially slip out and fall to his death. After all, he was soaring in the sky higher than skyscrapers themselves with no cushioning to save his life. I'm a bit surprised, Midoriya, the dragon said deeply. Normally by now somebody would have thought to escape my grasp if not the moment I entrapped them. But you haven't. It seems you still need to hone your quick thinking skills. Well, that's not exactly easy when you're flying at a height that can kill you, Ms. Ryukyu. At least you know who I am. That's exceptional. And please just call me Ryukyu. Formalities are not needed. A giant dragon kidnapping me after a phone call made by the secretary of the Ryukyu Hero office. That isn't obvious at all. I didn't kidnap you. I'm merely testing you to see if I'm making the right choice to enlist you at my agency. I don't randomly allow students to intern with me. Relax. Calm yourself. You practically reek of fear. Enjoy the company of us three. Free. Midoriya looked at his sides to spot anybody but found nothing short of an empty space. He looked beneath him and nearly jumped out of his skin when his eyes were met with dual royal blue irises smiling back at him. What the dash, Haya? Heido-senpai. That's right. She replied with a vibe of positivity and happiness. Though right now it's Nijire-chan, she zoomed by him with her wave motion flowing from her palms and bottoms of her feet, performing a circular loop in the air similar to roller coasters. See, Ryukyu said, ease your tensions. Like she is. Except, Heido-senpai dash, Nijire-chan, Nijire-chan, has a quirk that allows her to fly. I don't. Very true. But another difference is that, unlike her, you are able to release a very powerful shockwave from the limb of your choosing. Take a look at my wings. He followed her request, his eyes in sync with the gargantuan wings of a dragon. In order for me to stay airborne, I must move my wings against gravity to maintain my elevation. The wings push against the ground and uses the force as its own shockwave to keep me up. The higher the altitude, the more strenuous the force. Yes, I know. Similar to that of Hawk's. In a manner of speaking, yes, though since Hawk's wings are much smaller than mine, he must move them far quicker than I would ever need to. So let's not use him as an example. But returning back to the idea of shockwaves. Think of my wings as your limbs. I push out a shockwave, keeps me airborne. Simple, yes. It sounds simple. But then again, I don't have your quirk, so I wouldn't really know for certain if it really is. Correct as well. Though I think it's better if you experienced it for yourself. Midoriya gave her a questioning look as she returned a beastly soft smile. His once somewhat calm nature turned again into a state of panic when he noticed the distance between he and her face growing larger by the second, increasing exponentially. It didn't take long for the fact that she had let go of his body to enter his mind as he now fell towards the earth at the gravitational pull's speed. Shockwaves, Midoriya, Ryukyu said as she remained in a solitary location in the sky while watching the student fall. Remember the shockwaves? Heido encircled her mentor before taking a seat atop of her elongated neck. How long before you want me to go after him? Hopefully, you wouldn't need to go after him at all. From what I've read of his portfolio Principal Nizu has given me, Midoriya is a top-notch student in academics. I'm hoping he can use that brain of his to apply it now. And if he doesn't, well, Ryukyu heavily sighed. There goes my no claims as a hero. Oh man. Midoriya tossed and turned in the air, his entire body swiveling in each way possible. His insides did not feel on the positive side of the spectrum today, especially considering his abdomen insides were gut-punched without restraint. The fluids of his head rocked against his skull and his consciousness wasn't doing so well either. If he continued to spin like this for any minute or so longer, surely he would black out and more than likely bring about the end of his life. I'm merely testing you to see if I'm making the right choice to enlist you at my agency. I want to become the world's strongest hero, like you all might. The words of Ryukyu echoed in his mind, along with his longing to become society's next pillar of stabilization. For so long he had been given nothing, all because of a simple word that labeled him as no better than a spore of dirt on somebody's boot. Quirkless. That's all he was majority of his life. Quirkless. To majority of the people around him it meant nothing, but to those who were actually born with a gift it meant everything. It meant not being able to fit inside the jigsaw puzzle of their civilization. It meant not being able to be a hero one would see flying around defending their city from the darkest of shadows and pettiest of thieves. It meant he wasn't good enough. Oh. Tired of not being good enough, Midoriya threw his arms and legs out at his side in a star formation. The resistance made his body stabilize enough for him to flip around and fall with his face looking downwards. He still had his limbs outstretched to lessen his speed, hoping to figure out how to stop his descent without actually doing any harm. On top of that, he needed to do so quickly, because judging by how close the buildings were approaching him from below, it wouldn't take long for his body to make acquaintance with a strong and not so friendly surface. Shockwaves. Think shockwaves, he said to himself. A skyscraper with a helicopter pad currently unoccupied came into clear view, and judging by his trajectory he would crash into one of the many windows that line the outside. Okay, if I do this correctly with the perfect timing, I'll be able to redirect myself from crashing into the building and landing on the helicopter pad with ease. He bent his right arm at the pivoting point, a river system of energies surging in his limb. 7%. 7% should be enough to do the trick. It has to. Closer and closer, quicker and quicker the building came at him, practically in the danger zone. He eventually fell far. Enough that helicopter pad was now above him, with himself now looking into the reflective windows. In the glass behind him, he could see a blue object moving at near sonic speed towards him, with a dragon in chase behind the object moving at a much quicker speed. I'll show them I'm good enough. Detroit smash. Fwish, he punched the empty air beneath him, his body lashing immediately and changing direction on a whim. Now instead of falling he shot upwards in an arching motion, his height reaching just several meters above the helicopter pad. With speed and perfect elevation he landed onto the empty pad, sliding his red shoes across the concrete. Normally it would have been a time to celebrate his victory with a joyous heart and confident smile, but with his body now adjusting to the ground underneath it, his legs gave out similar to hot noodles. His heart away in both adrenaline and fear. A massive whoosh sent a wave of air into his face, nearly knocking him onto his back from the kneeling position. He watched as Ryukyu flew into the air above, with Hado landing on the pad just a few feet in front of him, strolling over to her junior. You okay? Midoriya puffed his cheeks to hold back the impromptu contents of his stomach, before steeling his nerves to push it back down and not look embarrassing in front of a girl. No. That's good, she replied. Air pushed her hair in all directions in response to Ryukyu landing on the pad with a heavy thud. The heroine reverted back into her normal state with a cover of smoke due to her transformation, walking from within the gray cloud like an angel coming from the heavens. Ryukyu paced over to the boy, bending down and placing a hand on his shoulder. Are you injured in any manner? No. He replied glumly. I'm not. Good, because I'm here to tell you the results of your test. You failed? Midoriya interrupted. I know I failed. Ryukyu was taken aback slightly. And why is that? You said it yourself. Anybody else would have thought to escape from your grip the moment you grabbed them, but not me. I panicked like an amateur and let fear get the best of me. On top of that, I almost let myself black out when I started to fall, not even thinking for a second on how to fix the situation until near the end. If it was anybody else, then it would have been so much smoother for them. Midoriya looked into her eyes with downtrodden orbs of emerald wavering underneath the protective layer. I think it's best if you find somebody that is able to think quicker for the moment, unlike me. It's obvious that I still don't have what it takes to be on the field as of now. There's a classmate of mine named Yaoyorozu. Momo Yaoyorozu. She's much smarter than me, and even though she doesn't show it much, she's much more capable than people will ever give her credit for. So much so that she entered you. Through recommendations, unlike me. I'm sorry, but it's clear I don't belong here. Ryukyu stared at the boy with a neutral gaze. It wasn't excited, nor angry, nor surprised. It was the clear definition of a stoic gaze. What she could be wondering he had no idea, but he certainly didn't want to know considering he had failed her test by every way possible. No doubt she's going to want interns who can think on the spot at the drop of a dime, push aside the doubts of their mind at the command of a single thought. He wasn't either of those. Not even close in the slightest in his opinion. You know, Ryukyu started. Interrupting those that are speaking is a rather rude habit. Please try to break that habit if possible in the future. Because if you interrupt somebody, you won't be able to hear what they have to say. Her lips curled into a gentle smile. I was going to say that you passed Midoriya. With flying colors. A blank gaze washed over his own face with his pupils shrinking into disbelief. I gave you one objective and one objective alone. Remember the shockwaves? That's it. That's all you had to do in order to qualify. And what did you do? You remembered the shockwaves and utilized it to act as a propulsion system for your body to land in a safe spot. Albeit any more delay and I would be back at my agency writing a letter on how somebody's son died because they fell face first into a wall of glass falling at -9.8 meters per second squared. But luckily I'm not doing that right now. Instead I'm doing something that's been waiting ever since your own sports festival. Ryukyu stood up on her feet with 𝗧𝗱𝗧 behind her right shoulder smiling down at him. The heroine crossed her arms with a proud feeling. Of course this decision falls onto your shoulders as I have no control over which agency for you to select from. But it is my honor to cordially invite you in joining me as a sidekick at the Ryukyu Hero office. If we're talking about luck, then I guess we may as well start now, Ryukyu said. The trio of heroes rode an elevator to the level in which her office is located. Because you just so happen to land on the rooftop of my agency. Saves us time from walking. Not that exercise is a negative aspect of course, given our professions. Your agency owns a helicopter pad? Midoriya asked. Why? Ryukyu's training is very dangerous, as you can tell? 𝗧𝗱𝗧𝗟 added. You're not the only trainee she's yoinked from the ground and thrown from a very high elevation point. The helicopter is used as a safety net, quite literally. It uses a special weapon 𝗧𝗱𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙 I see. So why wasn't it there this time? It was scheduled for maintenance repair due to the capture net having a slight malfunction in the ejection mechanism. But even without the helicopter present, it wouldn't have been needed. 𝗧𝗱𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Though today I hadn't intentionally aimed for my agency building, just releasing you at a high level of altitude for you to land on a building at random. Can you guess why? 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 prodded. To put the fear of death in me? Exactly. Ryukyu chuckled as she placed a hand onto the first year's shoulder. Quite, but not quite. Heroes are always faced with the threat of a fatal blow whenever confronting a villain on the streets. Even if the villain is a small-time thug for petty theft or a minor robbery, they are still dangerous without a doubt. A flick of the knife or a sleight-of-hand trigger pull of their firearm and you're done for good from this world. You must always be ready to have that feeling inside you that whenever you put on the costume of a hero, that day might just be your last. Never forget that our lives are only temporary. Never eternal. Ping, I know I've stated before that it's in your preference to choose my agency or another's, but I'd like to show you around in case you do consider mine. Ryukyu gestured for Midoriya to exit the elevator. Not that fancy commodities or wealthy appliances make a hero's value in society, of course. I don't buy my way to the top of the leaderboard. Midoriya stepped out of the lift with 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 behind him. To his right is a large window pane giving an excellent view of the busy city district from several stories too much in the air for his liking. It was an appealing day with the sun and afternoon mixture of pink and orange. In the middle of the room is semi-circle desk made of brown oak wood with a female behind the desk clicking away at a keyboard with a headset in her right ear. She was a young female with luscious blonde hair tied back into a bun with a rose petal sticking through it. Ghostly white pupils hid behind the protective layer of her eyes, focusing entirely on the screen itself. The lady diverted her attention from the screen to the heroes, a smile etching onto her face. Why hello. You must be Midoriya. Hello. Are you the lady that called me earlier? I am in fact that lady. Ms. Hoshiko, pleased to make your acquaintance Midoriya. I look forward to working with you should you accept the invitation. Thank you. It's an honor to meet you too. By the way, Ryukyu, Sir Knight I called just a few minutes ago, said he needs to speak with you about something important not regarding the case you've been speaking with him about. Thank you. I'll be sure to notify him later after we're done. If you'll follow me, Midoriya. Ryukyu took her stride in front of the boy who followed her in tail. She led the student through a door leading into a separate room as Heido stayed behind with the secretary. Once the door closed behind the duo, Hoshiko leaned over the desk and spoke at a whisper. He's a lot cuter in person. You think so? Heido replied as she propped an elbow onto the desk. I think he's a bit plain looking when it comes to features, while also having this kind of geeky vibe to him. But he's supposedly one of the strongest first years in his class, so can't judge a book by his cover. Ryukyu told him about why exactly he's been keeping an eye on him. Because she wants to form him into a good hero that can fill in the hole that we have right now because of All Might's retirement. Oh, she hasn't told you. Hoshiko placed a hand in front of her mouth. Oh my. What? Heido, can you recount to me what you know about dragons in mythology? Let me see. The student looked up to the ceiling with a finger against her chin. They're famous for hoarding shiny objects like gold and jewelry, which is why her office is basically loaded with fancy TVs and paintings. They're very territorial. That one is very obvious, especially when Endeavor came around here that one time and she nearly nipped his head off. And what else? There's one more thing about dragons that many people seem to forget. Heido thought long and strong about the last aspect related to dragons. She certainly got the first two most stereotypical facts about the draconian race. But when the last fact finally came to the train station of her mind, so did the color red coming to her cheeks. Oh my gosh, forwards, she's barely 18. What was that about? Midoriya asked, curious as to why Heido screamed behind the door he came through. I have not the slightest idea. Please, make yourself comfortable, Ryukyu said. Her personal office was much more intricate in terms of monetary value, as related to her dragoness behavior. A shelf was lined with various lavish objects ranging from a shining golden goblet to a glass wine cup that looked as if were carved from diamond itself. A flat-screen TV was implanted into the wall on their left, showing a live coverage of the local news station with the volume completely mute. Several busts were placed sporadically about the room as they displayed extravagant pieces and necklaces of jewelry that Midoriya can only dream of buying. What really caught his eye the most is the mural of a dragon that stretched across the entirety of the wall on his right. The design of the dragon was so masterfully done, winding up and down into several loops of its body. The curvature of its spikes, the shading of the separate green scales, with the horns a natural oak color, had to be done by only the finest painters. Razor-sharp teeth stuck out in seemingly endless rows similar to a shark but with much more myth and danger. That's so appealing, Midoriya commented. I agree. The painters that I hired to make the mural did a masterfully skilled job to create the design. Though I hope you don't think of me as a sort of gold digger, I guess is the word I will use for this situation. I only use the wealthy items you see as a display, nothing more. Money is of no concern for me in the world outside of this room. I'd much rather enjoy a humble picnic in the park than to eat out in a fancy restaurant. Oh, I didn't think of you as that way anyways, Ryukyu. I think you're one of the most humble heroes out there. Why, thank you, Midoriya. I hope I can retain that image in your eyes. Ryukyu made her way to a wooden desk at the back of the room with a window pane behind the desk for another view of the city. She rounded the desk onto the other side as she gave a slight hand gesture to a chair. Please. Thank you. Midoriya graciously took his seat in the chair, sinking into the soft material beneath him. It was comfortable as well as the black padded armrests that held up his forearms. Ryukyu took her own spot in a custom office chair, red in color like her outfit with black-tipped wings sprouting out from the headrest. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a neat stack of papers attached to each other by a blue paper clip and placed the stack onto the desk. Now then, let's get to the more intriguing parts. I've read your files that have been sent from you. 8 excellent grades, above average physical capabilities, and you have relative experience with villains so far in the school year. The Hosu incident, the USJ as well as the training camp incident with one of your classmates being abducted by the League. None of these are events that somebody your age should ever go through. However, I'd like to get your own viewpoint on each event. Do not be afraid to use the more NTMT details and be as honest as you would like to be. I'm sure. It's okay to shy away from this if you would like. I understand that during those times it can be frightful and even traumatizing, so if at any given point you feel the need to stop, please do not hesitate. I will not see you any less as a potential candidate for my agency. She clasped her hands together underneath her chin, resting her head onto the makeshift podium. We'll start with the USJ for today. Nothing more. What happened in your eyes? Midoriya thought back to the horrifying conditions in which he and his classmates were put through when the villains decided to spontaneously attack out of the blue. It was scary. In all honesty, villains just came through a portal in the middle, a lot of them. Some were young while others were old. Some male, some female. The amount for me at the time was a bit too much. I felt like having a heart attack just by being so scared. And you have every right to feel that way. Bravery is built from the ashes of fear. Do not let the fire burn out. Continue. He swallowed a suffocating knot in his throat before continuing. Me, alongside 𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟𝗧 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 were separated from the rest of the group, taken to a giant body of water aboard a yacht. There were villains in the water, all of them with amphibious quirks obviously. I never thought about it back then too much because I just wanted to protect my classmates, but now that I think about it like this, they each had a face that said they wanted to kill us. Legitimately, take our lives away. We're just high schoolers and yet they appeared as if they didn't even care about that. They just wanted to see us dead. You're afraid. Scared for your own lives. What else do you feel in that situation? How does your body feel? It felt like I wanted to throw up just by being so nervous. My eyes just kept dancing around to see if I can find anything or anyone to help us. But we were alone on that ship. Just the three of us with nowhere to go except towards the villains. Midoriya flipped his hands upwards. My hands. They kept shaking, sweating from the combination of being nervous and the material of the gloves I had on that day. My heart felt like it was going to explode and my legs felt like jelly. Good. That's enough for today. Ryukyu held the smallest of smiles on her face. Experience with villains can be quite scarring, especially in the right scenarios for them. Talking about those scenarios can be therapeutic in ways you might not expect. Don't be afraid to revisit these scenarios with your instructors at UA. Although few people know this, Midnight is an excellent counselor when it comes to events such as these. I know that from experience myself. He gave a puzzled look to the hero. You do. I do. A few years back, I was involved in an operation that very nearly took my life, but it took somebody else's that was close to me. A friend and ally that's been there for me for the longest. It felt like I couldn't relieve myself of the grief that weighed into my shoulders, pushing me down onto the concrete towards the core of this planet. But then along came Midnight and her serenading ways to comfort those who have been through the walks of hell. It didn't take long for me to hold my head up again with confidence, ready to take on the world again. I recommend speaking with her about a private therapy session. I'm sure as her student she would gratefully accept. Midoriya never thought about his female instructor as a sort of counselor for those traumatized by an event in their life. He would have thought either Principal Nizu or maybe even All Might to fill that role. But not Midnight. I think I will consider that. If the need to do so comes up. Excellent decision. They may train you to be heroes, but never forget they can also be your close friends. You'd be surprised how many students forget that. But enough with more feeble matter. Let's talk about you and your opinion on work studies. This is something you want to partake in, yes? That's right. And do you off the top of your head know any choices that stick out to you? Those from your sports festival perhaps? Well, I only had one offer from the sports festival but had his license temporarily revoked because of my actions. He won't be able to teach for another 2 months or so. That is unfortunate. What about those from your school itself? Eraserhead is a formidable instructor to study under, as well as Snipe. None of them really stick out to me that much. Not that they're bad at teaching in any way, I just want something a bit tougher considering my quirk. Ryukyu chuckled. I can understand that portion. Then if you'll allow me, let me give a rundown of what my agency consists of. We mainly specialize in domestic abuse and rescue operations as well as the normal day-to-day patrols in city streets. Different agencies have different skills to pick up on, of course. The Pussycats offer search and rescue in natural terrain. Fatgum's agency, the one where Tamaki Amajiki attends to, specialize in the more covert tasks such as undercover and oftentimes work with the police in narcotics and illegal armaments. She lay her clasped hands onto the desktop, twiddling her thumbs amidst each other. Though in terms of strength, I do not mean to boast, but none of them can compare to me. Thanks to the draconian aspect of my quirk, even in my natural form such as this I can crush bone with the grip of my hand. Punch through steel like it was made from freshly made paper. If you're looking to improve your strength, I can more than willing do so. We can spar to improve your combat abilities, have workout sessions to build up your natural power and endurance limits. I've seen your quirk and with the right training can be an unstoppable force for the hero side. Midoriya scrunched his lips to the side as he glanced at the mural in thought. She caught sight of his pondering mood and gave a slight head pages. Do not feel as if I am sweetening the pot for you. I am merely giving the base details on what I can give to you. If you would like some advice other than mine, you can feel free to ask Kato. She would probably talk your green head off considering her nature, but at least she can give an honest opinion. Midoriya hummed gently. He really wanted to make the right decision when it came to his first time attempting hero studies. Even though it's just barely being placed in front of him, the choice to join alongside Ryukyu does seem very tempting. He wanted somebody that can possibly keep up with the physical feats that One for All constantly puts him through. The only other person that possible could have done that is All Might, but unfortunately has retried after his titanic battle. Gran Torino is temporarily suspended thanks to his reckless behavior. And it didn't help that his nature to seemingly jump into things without thinking too much is more prominent now than ever. He just wanted to dive into work studies already. I think I do like the idea of being your sidekick, Ryukyu. She gave a bigger smile than the one previous, flipping to the very back of his stack of papers. Excellent. I hope that I can become an instructor to your liking, Midoriya. Unlike the internships from earlier, you will receive pay here like any normal sidekick would receive pay. It is your responsibility to keep up with schoolwork, and if you fall below a specific grade, Principal Nizu will be forced to pull you from my agency. There will be at times where we call upon you even during school hours at which you will be properly excused of any absences. Is there anything else you would like to ask of me? Not that I can think of right now. Oh, I also forgot one very important aspect about this. She tapped an index finger gently against his forehead in between his eyes. Your mental health. If at any given time you feel like you cannot continue anymore, you cannot muster the strength to keep dealing with the strenuous activities of this work study because it bears down onto your mind. You must always step down from the sidekick position. Your health is much more important than a measly title I give you. Recovery and rehabilitation is far worthier than fighting and combat. Understood? Yes. I understand clearly. I will not push the limits of my mental health because I don't want to stop. Precisely. Protruding out a pen, she signed at the bottom of the last paper before removing it from the stack and handing it to him. He took the paper and looked over her signature that gave him permission to join her as a sidekick. You'll start at the beginning for next week. I look forward to seeing you here again as my protégé Midoriya. I would see you out myself, but unfortunately I must speak with 𝗓𝗍𝗓 about something important. Hato will return with you to the school. Until then, take care. A smile broadened onto his face as he looked to her with ecstatic mindset to learn, to improve, to become the best hero this world will eventually see. Okay. I'll see you next week. Have a good day, Midoriya. Ryukyu lifted a gentle palm as the student rose from his seat and made for the door. Just before he took his leave, he turned back and waved at her before opening and disappearing behind the door. Chuckled at the excited nature of a youthful high schooler ready to learn the ways of being a hero, no less being excited to learn from her specifically. As the sound of an elevator pinging can be heard around the corner, Ms. Hoshiko slithered her way into the personal office and taking a spot at the chair formerly taken by him. So, Judging by the way he practically bounced all over the elevator with green lightning around his body, I'm assuming you accepted. I did. Let's hope the next week comes quicker than usual. They. Ms. Hoshiko clapped her hands softly and rapidly. Good for him. He looked so happy. Did you also tell him about what you want to do to him? Ryukyu her head and raised both eyebrows. Excuse me. You know what you told me a few weeks ago. About the whole mythical dragon thing with a certain somebody. You know what? That thing. Ryukyu furrowed her eyebrows as her eyes danced side to side in quick succession. She thought back to whatever her secretary could possibly be talking about that she wanted to do to Midoriya. When the thought came back to her, Ryukyu's cheeks dusted into heavy red as she lightly smacked the secretary on her forehead. Oh, he is a student, Hoshiko. On top of that, a student from one of the most prestigious institutions in all of Japan. I never said that's what I wanted to do. I said that's what the media might think I would do to him. Remember? Momo. Wait, I forgot you said that. Ryukyu scoffed with her cheeks now a lighter pink than before. Honestly, how ridiculous. Do you really think I'm going to have a young sidekick of mine become my mate? Aside from that, I doubt he would even consider me to be anything near good-looking. Ping Hado happily hummed out of the elevator as she skipped along with Midoriya practically drooling over the paper in his hands. This paper is another step for him to achieving his dream. But there was something else on his mind that really stuck with him. It didn't change how he's going to see her as a mentor, it just sticks to his mind like glue to a shoe. Hey, Hado-senpai. Yes? She asked. What is it? I know this seems kind of a random thing, but Ryukyu's really pretty. Ryukyu? Ms. Hoshiko called from the open door. Your new sidekick is here. Just a moment, I will be out shortly. Ryukyu yelled back. She finished sliding the headband with clawed mask onto her face, smiling gently into the mirror. To say she had been looking forward to this day with vigorous happiness is an understatement to her true sentiments. In truth, she had been wanting to enlist him as her sidekick ever since the day of his sports festival, but the mindset he had back then was too overwhelming for him considering the field in which she worked in. No doubt the feeble walls of his mind would crumble just by hearing the topic of domestic abuse in homes thought to be inhabited by love and love alone. She didn't think that events such as the Hosu incident or his training camp were benefits in his life, but at the same time it fortified his nerves and hardened his mindset. Now he is much calmer than he was during the USJ invasion, with an attitude to set the bar even higher than the day previous. He wanted to learn, and she is willing to teach him in any manner that she can. Not many people come to the top of her head that she knows might be able to handle the powerful backlash of his destructive quirk. Albeit it's much more refined now into a power boost than a brutish and fell technique he displayed at the festival, yet still holding the power to complete decimate his surrounding if used improperly. In her younger years, she can relate to Midoriya when it came to her natural strength. Since a portion of her dragon form's power transfers over to her natural form of a humanoid, that meant she has to pay close attention as to how much force she exerts onto something. Even simple as something as holding a pencil can be challenging, as it may snap in her grip if left unchecked. It took years upon years of delicate training just to properly grip a writing utensil without it snapping in her grasp. So, in a way, she can somewhat hold a connection with him in a manner to hone their strength. Even now there are times where she accidentally closes a door too strong, snapping a hinge clean off and becoming slightly embarrassed. Satisfied with her appearance, she made for the door and peered out to see Midoriya having a conversation with Ms. Hoshiko. He nodded his head every few seconds or so to show that he understood what will happen in the event something does happen during school that requires his immediate attention. At least that's what Ryukyu thought she heard from the bits of dialogue she was able to pick up on. Ready for the day, she stepped out from her personal office as he looked her way with a mind ready to take on the world one step at a time. But at the same time, he also looked as if he were observing something with a descriptive gaze. Almost as if he were observing her. Hello, Midoriya. Glad to see you here. Hi, Ryukyu. He greeted. I'm really excited to learn from you today. Good, but before we continue, starting today and for as long as you're attending my agency, you will address me as Ryukyu-sensei. No different than what you address your instructors at UAS. Oh, Ryukyu-sensei. Better. We will perform a simple patrol today to get you started. From what I've been informed, you've never done a legitimate patrol since your internship was forced to end early. So I'll have you follow my stride today and give you pointers on what to expect and what not to expect. Yes. Well then, let's not delay this any further. Shall we? Ryukyu made for the elevator with student at her side, giving a wave to the secretary before the doors closed. Today was the mark of a brand new day, a day in which she will at last have the opportunity to see if she made the right choice of waiting all this time for his recruitment. So, here's the basic necessities you need to know about patrols such as these. She started. If in the future you have your own agency, you're going to want to have your patrolling area set in a several-mile radius from your agency. Take note of how many heroes are patrolling into your area both at day and at night. If there are more heroes patrolling at night, take the daytime hours and vice versa. You always want to keep a sufficient amount of heroes on patrol at all times in the event that something happens. I see, Midoriya said, writing down the information onto his small notebook with a focused mind. Any incident that is resolved in your hands will automatically be recorded into the police database, which in turn will be sent to the board that determines your ranking. You will also receive pay for resolving these incidents that is given out by the government. That usually ties into the more intricate details such as economics and whatnot, so I wouldn't really pay too much attention to matters such as those. You also receive pay just for doing a patrol such as this. Oh really? Of course. If the city sees that you are taking the time out of your day to conduct a survey over the area for any villains, they will pay you on that behalf. Think of it as a more complicated version of being a security guard, just with the more life-threatening aspects about this position. I always thought that heroes were paid just for partaking rescue operations or even joint missions. Never thought they would be paid for doing basic patrols. There are many things about being a pro hero that a regular civilian does not yet know of. You'll know more once you become a pro in the future, but for now it's okay to focus on the more basic foundations. Don't overwork yourself. Understand? Yes, Ryukyu-sensei. I understand. Excellent. She gave a small curl of her lips to him before looking forward, keeping her attention up. Midoriya smiled back at her even though she wasn't looking his way, focused on the details of her appealing looks. He never paid much attention to her figure since he believed someone's beauty didn't lie in the size of their melons or how their lower asset. But at the same time he couldn't ignore that Ryukyu is quite honestly one of the more appealing women he's ever come across. Her appealing soft blonde hair partially held up by the headband on her forehead, her figure of athletic nature built by a prowess of excellent conditioning. Her eyes seemed to attract the most attention as the pupils were slit with a golden yellow reflection. Something about her eyes resembling a dragon's was ironic considering her quirk, yet it still intrigued him to look. He didn't know much about Ryukyu aside from her placement in the hero ranking board. In all honesty, not many people knew much at all about her with the possible exception of Ms. Hoshiko, her secretary. If he was going to be her student at her agency, he would like to get to know the hero and her background. Mainly because he wants to know if she too ever went through some of the struggles he goes through at you. Today. In her current age, Ryukyu is a wind torrent with the conviction to lock away villains with the brains of a jury. But he wanted to know if she had always been that way, maybe going as far back as high school. So many things intrigued him as her student, so it was only right for him to wonder the little details about her. These ears. Her voice snapped him out of this train of thought. He looked to see she was playfully flipping an ear of his hero mask behind his head. Are these by any chance supposed to resemble Miruko? They are strikingly similar to her own. Oh no, they're supposed to look like the bangs that All Might has. Here, let me show you. Midoriya flipped the mask onto his head as he faced towards her, the bangs sticking up into the sky. Yes. All Might. I should have known a child your age would in some manner idolize him. And for the correct reasons too. He is what all heroes should aim to be. Were the ears incorporated by your choice? Sort of. My original costume was made by my mother, who in turn made the ears. But after that costume was destroyed, a new one was made, thankfully, with the bangs still on the mask. He lightly prodded at the tip of a bang with an index finger. Though, I guess it can be easy to misjudge them for rabbit ears, huh? Very easy. But if this design is the exact copy of your mother's, then I will say she has talent. Very well done on her part. Thief. A voice cried out in distress behind the duo, causing both to quickly turn around at the commotion. A woman was on the ground with a finger pointed to a man running away with a purse flailing in his left hand. He stole my purse. The will to protect flaring up inside, Midoriya activated full cowling and began taking off after the assailant before he stopped dead in his tracks. He looked back to Ryukyu, who nodded her head at him. With permission granted, he once again chased after He-Man, whipping around to his front and standing with arms stretched out to the side. "Stop. Please return dash, out of my way, jackass." The man planted his hand against Midoriya's head and threw the boy onto the floor. The student fell onto his hands and knees, shaken not by the strength that pushed him, but by the fact he couldn't bring himself to attack the purse thief. Everything was in the right place for him to make the stop, yet out of nowhere, he just froze to make the critical moment of detainment. Why couldn't he bring himself to put his hands onto the thief? There was no answer currently that he could hopefully give, and it pained him. In the past, he's able to seemingly jump head first into the most deadly of situations without so much as giving a thought about his own safety. Yet now he couldn't seem to find the will to make the stop because he was worried about the thief's safety. He didn't want to just punch the criminal out of the plane of existence, otherwise not will his reputation as a hero he ruined but Ryukyu's as well. It felt like he had failed. The man had been looking back to the fallen student, not paying attention to the route in front of him. He ran right into the body of Ryukyu as he staggered backwards into his behind. The eyes of a dragon coldly staring into his soul with conviction and judgment. "Surrender," she spoke stoically and low. "Give up the purse immediately, or I will make you regret laying your hands not only on the woman, but on my own student." Okay. The thief shakily placed the purse onto the floor in between he and Ryukyu. He held his hands up to show no tricks were going to be pulled. "I'm done, I ain't going anywhere." A female police officer said as she wrote down information onto a small notepad. "And what happened after that?" "After that, my sidekick Deku chased after him in an attempt to stop him. He rounded to the front of the thief and dash as Ryukyu recounted the events of the attempted theft to the officer. Midoriya stood idly nearby a light pole watching the police stuff the purse thief into the back of a police cruiser. It felt like his world had seemingly broken into a billion glass shards that cut into his skin with more pain than any real blade can ever deal to him. All the training All Might had put him through on the beach, Gran Torino's mentoring to further hone one for all, and Mr. Aizawa's instructions felt instantly null and all for naught. If he couldn't even stop something simple as a purse thief during a simple patrol, then what chance did he have of stopping something even bigger such as a bank robbery or even a joint operation? He stood no chance practically. On top of that, it all happened in front of his new mentor, if not the entire block to see. He felt so embarrassed even with the mask over his head acting as an identity barrier. Already he can picture the teases and jokes his classmates might make towards him for a failed detainment. "Excuse me." A woman's voice caught his attention on his right as he turned to her. It was the same woman that had their purse snatched by the thief earlier. "You must be Ryukyu's sidekick." "Yes. I want to thank you for helping to stop that man. Please take this." She held up a stack of yen for him to take. Midoriya looked at the stack of money and politely shook his head at her. "No please, I don't require it. I think it's better if you kept it for yourself. Thank you for the generous offer, but please. The money will be better handled in your own hands. Please, I insist. It's the least I can do." "No, thank you ma'am, I think he will be very grateful in your generous offer." Ryukyu suddenly chimed in from behind. Midoriya looked to her with incredulous look of disbelief as she smiled at him, though it appears he may have gotten cold feet from being in the public's eye for the first time. "So I'll take the offering for him if you don't mind, miss." "Of course not. He's earned it after all." The lady gently gave the money to Ryukyu, who slightly bowed at the woman. "Thank you for your assistance today. Both of you." "It is our pleasure, miss. Please see that you are safely returned home." Ryukyu gave a gentle wave to the woman as she turned away from the heroes and made her way home. Once out of earshot, the hero held the stack of money for her student to take. "I believe this is yours." Wait, but Ryukyu-sensei, this isn't right. I didn't do anything, I just froze. I couldn't even take down the thief and retrieve the purse. Deku. She spoke gently. Have you forgotten that you have never dealt with something as simple as a purse thief? You've only dealt with bigger fish in the water such as legitimate villains and even hired guns to take over an entire island. You've never experienced something so mild and simple before. It's only right for you to freeze up in the moment of truth. Yes, but doesn't me having experience with villains mean I should be able to make a detainment? Nope. He stared at her with widened orbs of emerald confusion. Deku, you're so willing to learn yet at the same time so unable to firmly comprehend the simple facts laid out before you. With villains, you are not going to attempt to detain them. They won't even give you the chance to do so. They will take your life if you so much as slip up by a hair or even a fraction of a second. You are fighting for your own life when it comes to villains such as the League or another group of them. But with daily criminals it is a very different story on the shelf. With thieves, petty robbers and small-time criminals you need to be much more considerate of your actions. Detaining somebody sounds very simple, yes, but sounding simple and being simple are two completely different topics. You must carefully restrain your strength to not intentionally harm them as you would with a villain that is aiming for the jugular of your throat. Ryukyu placed a hand onto his shoulder. Do not think you are any less a hero just because today did not produce the results you wanted. It is all a part of the learning process to becoming a hero. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘 went through the same phase too, so you are not alone. I see the drive in your actions, the will to act on impulse flaring whenever the window shows itself. With time we can refine your drive into something marvelous so that you don't feel so hesitant in your movements. This will be a great step for you as long as you are willing to learn the simpler things in between the lines. Midoriya slumped his shoulder just a tad, still feeling as if today was a defeat than a victory. In the end he couldn't overlook the fact that he failed with a purse thief and he doesn't feel like he has a right to accept the money that the nice woman had given to him. But he signed up with Ryukyu for a reason, that reason being the will to learn. There are going to be steps in his journey to becoming a hero and those steps will be faltered by emotions and misjudgment. Hopefully, it would not take long for those emotions of hesitation to melt away into nothing, replaced by a blacksmith's fire fueled with the determination to become better. I guess so, Ryukyu-sensei. She chuckled at his still downtrodden mood, opening his palm and placing the stack of yen in his hand. For starters, never turn down an offering made by the civilian. Nobody is telling them that it is necessary for them to pay tribute to you for your services, so small gifts such as these mean something, even if you feel like you don't deserve it. He gripped the stack of money in hand tightly, and noticed it felt wrong as it pressed between his fingers. Actually, it felt a little too wrong. Curiosity piquing in his mind, he held one of the bills up to the light, knowing why it felt a little off. Ryukyu-sensei? Yes. This bill is fake. With a brow she took one of the bills and raised it to the sun's light. Oh my. It appears so. She looked in the direction that the woman walked to see them sitting on a bench at nearby bus stop. Ryukyu looked to her student with a gentle curl. Willing to know what it feels like dealing with counterfeit bills? He smiled. Sure, why not? Just another small thing I'd like to learn under your tutelage. I'd be happy to show you. Congratulations, Deku, you've now dealt with a woman carrying a dangerous amount of counterfeit bills. Ryukyu commented. No doubt one of the greatest feats a hero has ever done for this country. Your name will be spread among the legends of our time. Midoriya slumped his shoulders in slight defeat while chuckling nervously. I thought it was going to be much more deeper than that. She scoffed amusedly. Such as? I don't know, maybe she was secretly a villain or something and we would engage in actual combat. But if all she had was counterfeit money, then I don't know how to feel. Ryukyu chuckled at his anticipation for action. You are so eager to just dive into the heavier duties of hero work, aren't you? But do not worry. Your thirst to be a crime-fighting sentinel will eventually be quenched one of these days. Probably quicker than you think too. Especially considering the case that my agency along with a few others have been roped into. The case? Regarding what? She hummed with a hand over her chin. thinking whether or not now is the perfect time to give him a quick rundown of what she's been working on for some time now. It is merely his first day of being a sidekick, so perhaps it was a bit too on the early side to give him the details. After all, it's uncertain whether or not he will continue to attend her agency. 𝗧𝗧𝗟 already knows the information about this case, so maybe even she can tell the boy. I believe that in due time you will be ready to know about this case. Once you have a good grasp on being an official sidekick. I'm not saying you're not, because you do indeed have the fire that holds a true hero against the darkness. But patience is a virtue much needed to know. Yeah, I know, he said. Should we continue our patrol? Of course. We've only merely just started, obviously. No doubt the day will entail something else. There you are. A happy voice erupted which caught them slightly off guard. Skidding out from an alley came Togata clad in his hero uniform. Been looking all over for you guys. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘. Midoriya's sentence was cut off by a pinch on the upper left side of his back. 𝗏𝗡𝗡. Ryukyu said, emphasizing his hero name for her student to remember next time. A pleasure to see you here. Are you by chance on a patrol as well with your agency? Actually no. When we heard you two were doing a patrol together, he and I have been looking for you guys. These streets are very easy to be lost in. Midoriya asked. Ryukyu. A voice that sounded like it was made in the mold of solid steel, and strong emotion came from behind. Midoriya turned around curiously, and from the corner of his eye swore he can see Ryukyu slightly bearing a scowl on her face. And for a proper reason too, because standing shortly behind them came 𝗓𝗍𝗍, who emotionlessly stared into the eyes of Midoriya, not even bothering for the Dragoon hero. Something about his gaze seemed to make the student's legs feel similar to wobbly noodles in a hot pot. He couldn't exactly pinpoint what made him feel that way. It was just their pleasure. Midoriya, albeit partially scared, began to geek out slightly in his boots. It's 𝗓𝗍𝗍𝗍, All Might's former sidekick. Yes? Ryukyu commented. Yes, it is. There was this hint of hostility in her voice that Midoriya immediately picked up on. Not hostile to the point where she appeared to have the need of picking a fight in broad daylight with another hero. But hostile in another way. 𝗓𝗍𝗍𝗍, what is it that you require of the student? He pointed to Midoriya with a stern finger. I need to speak with him. With me? Yes. With you. It relates to an urgent matter that for some time now has been pushed aside. It would have occurred earlier, had it not been for Ryukyu denying my request in the past week. Ryukyu-sensei? Midoriya looked to his mentor to see she had a slight look of shame on her face. Her eyes were turned towards the ground at a diagonal angle. What's he talking about? I'll spare her the details of sharing her side of the story. 𝗓𝗍𝗍𝗍 interrupted. But if you don't mind, I'd like to have this conversation in private. Away from the ears of my own sidekick as well as your mentor. Midoriya took a step forward to do as he was requested, but not before again turning to Ryukyu. This time, she didn't look at him to give permission nor so much as a head nod. She still held her gaze towards the ground. Seeing her appear slightly down made him feel a bit uncomfortable and odd inside. Before, she had the appearance of a hero that seemingly never faltered even with all of the spotlights on her. The media constantly describing Ryukyu as fearless and uncaring of the negative opinions that sprouted in all of her years. But this somewhat showed a secret side of her that nobody has seen. At least, not that he's seen. What happened to the words of wisdom from earlier? Wanting to comfort, he swallowed his tendency to become nervous around females and placed a hand onto her bicep. She slowly diverted her focus from the ground to him as he gave a soft look to her. His eyes glimmering in the sunlight of a clear day. I won't take too long, Ryukyu-sensei. We can continue our patrol once I'm done. She opened her mouth to speak, but instead bore it back down her throat. It was replaced by a low growl when her eyes found 𝗓𝗍𝗍𝗍 again. This time, it definitely sounded a bit more on the protective side. Though he wondered as to what could possibly be the reasoning for this. Ryukyu didn't appear to be the type of hero that held grudges or ill mannerisms to other people, so what exactly is this display of concern she exhibited to him? Do not stall any longer, Deku. Her voice was enough to make the glue on his feet instantaneously melt in fear that if he did stall, he would take another flight through the atmosphere and drop at a high elevation. An experience he wouldn't want go through anytime soon again. He knew that it was going to happen sometime in the future. He just didn't want it to happen now. With a nod of his head, Midoriya jogged over to the patiently waiting 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏, just out of range from normal earshot level. Ryukyu watched with a careful eye for any tricks that the latter might pull in an attempt to take him away. Although few people know this, she doesn't exactly have the highest standing for 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏, especially considering a hidden fact centered around Togata. Speaking of the blonde sidekick, he nervously approached the heroine at her side while darting his eyes left and right. "Ryukyu, are you still mad about, Not as much as I was before," she replied. "Why would I be mad for my own failure in teaching you? You had every right to break from my agency and attend 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏. I just..." Her voice faltered, a small quiver in her lips. "I just don't want that to happen now." Now then, Deku. 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏 spoke quietly yet still at an audible level for him to hear. "Let's begin with your power." My power? What do you mean?" "I'm referring to One for All. Surely you didn't think that as All Might's former partner I wouldn't know about that power, would you?" "Well, he never said anything about it. Actually, not to be rude or anything, but he never said anything about you in general. Because he and I broke off in relatively bad terms?" 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏 pushed his glasses up with a finger. "As you know, my quirk allows me to see one's future for a short duration. And what I saw in All Might's is exactly this. A hollowed-out shell of a former world protector now reduced to the frail figure of a skinny man. I tried to warn him back then. Warn him that if he continued to go down his path of being a hero he'd end up in the exact spot. But of course, being as stubborn as he is, he refused to listen. I was right in the end. And he couldn't accept that. Yes, but think about everything All Might has done just in this year alone. The USJ Island as well as his battle against All for One. Nobody else could have done what he did. Perhaps alone they couldn't. But think carefully. Imagine if All Might wasn't at Kamino Ward. Who were the others present? Let me see. Endeavor, Edgeshot, Kamui Woods, Lady, Gang Orca, even Tiger of the Pussycats. Endeavor was the number 2 hero for a reason. Like him or not, he's still a hero that can stop even the more tougher villains. Edgeshot is a brilliant tactician with a mind that can think on the run even during intense pressure. Both Kamui Woods and Empty Lady are heroes that have proven their worth even being at such a young age. Do you really think that if they didn't combine their efforts they would not have been able to stop All for One? Tell me please. You weren't there? No, I wasn't. But I know from experience in the field to tell you that All Might's presence was not needed at Kamino Ward. He should have let the other heroes take on the operation themselves. What does all of this have to do with One for All? 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏 took a glance over to his shoulder to find Ryukyu staring back at him, waiting and observing with furrowed brows and crossed arms. I'm assuming you haven't told her about this, correct? Of course not. I'm not putting anybody at risk because of the dangers of my given quirk. If anybody is going to take on the risks, it's going to be me and me alone. And yet you still accepted her offer to become a sidekick at her agency. Any reason in particular? Ryukyu has been observing me ever since the sports festival. She's been interested in choosing me for so long, but I guess she just wanted to wait for the right opportunity. She's strong, which can help with my training in One for All. She's also smart enough to explain everything about being a pro hero to me so that I can understand. I don't know much about her training regimen specifically, but if somebody like Hato-senpai is strong enough to be in the big 3 underneath her tutelage, then I want to be strong like her as well. All valid reasons. But don't forget the part of you mentioning she waited for so long to enlist you. Do you want to know what she told me when she first came across you? What? 𝗓𝗍𝗧𝗏 leaned closer towards him. She said that your attitude was too inferior, too undersatisfactory, and that your behavior exhibits that of a shut-in introvert closed off from the world around them. You may have been smart enough to utilize the mind field to your advantage, but in the end it was your nervous behavior that sealed her decision when it came to choosing you. Your stuttering habit coupled with your brittle mindset was everything she needed to know about who you truly were. With his right thumb the hero. pointed behind him. Take a glance at Togata over there. Did you know that he wasn't always in attendance at my agency? Very few people know this, but he actually went to her agency when he first started work studies. But his quirk was far too taxing in her own hands, too challenging for her to even begin a regimen for him to hone the slippery grips of his ability. So, I came to him with a proper guide showing him that permeation can be effective when used and timed correctly. It took not the blink of an eye for him to join me at my side because he saw what Ryukyu could not give him. A proper teacher. Midoriya absorbed every word given to him by the pro hero. To think that Togata at first attended her agency wasn't too mind-blowing, but the fact that 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍 seemingly stole him away from Ryukyu did irk his rational side. Even if Togata was promised a way to masterfully control his tricky quirk, that didn't mean there was a right to take a student away from a strong working teacher. No less that teacher being his own. And yes, the thought that Ryukyu claimed him to be not yet ready for her agency back then did hurt slightly. It hurt him to know that heroes turned away from him because of his nervous stature. But even if she didn't take him under her draconian wing at the time, she still kept her eye on him, waiting for the right time of the year to pick the apple when it is fresh. Maybe all of this is the reason why she held a dirty look to 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍. Because he quite honestly, even if she didn't hold the right skill set to train Togata, stole him away. And in turn maybe that was the cause of her protective growl from earlier. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍 placed a hand onto Midoriya's shoulder. Join me. As my sidekick I can show you how to hone one for all. There are still a few tricks I remember during my time alongside All Might that I can pass down to you, if he already hasn't. Ryukyu's dragon strength alone isn't enough to suffice for your training. You will quickly eclipse her strength with your own, and all that time training under her wing will be void. A difference between her and I is that I will not fail you. You receive as you shall request. Do you want to know another difference between you and her? Midoriya spoke lowly. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍 furrowed his brows slightly, picking up on the hint of anger. What? She actually came to me. In person. I know what you said about her first encounter with me might be true, but that doesn't mean I'll see her any less as the hero that will train me. It's in her own right to make criticisms about me because a student can't grow without the help of their teacher. Midoriya stared into the hero's eyes with a calm fury of blazing confidence infused with the emerald fuel of promise. Ryukyu is the only person that actually approached me, even if it was just for a simple question. That let me know about her interest in me. Nobody else aside from Gran Torino showed any interest in choosing me as their intern. Not even you at the sports festival. Because you were practically made from the fibers of a naive child. Even now I can still see that previous nature. Yeah, well, guess what? So can Ryukyu, yet she still chose me. She chose me to be her sidekick, while you come from wherever you were before this just to possibly steal me like you did with 𝗏𝗡𝗡𝗏. Well, I'm sorry 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗍, but I'm politely refusing. Midoriya pushed his way past the hero, bumping into his shoulders slightly. He jogged over to Ryukyu, who looked at him slightly confused before stopping in front of her left shoulder and turning to the previous hero. It was meant to display his allegiance with the Dragoon hero and not 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗍, even if they were All Might's former sidekick. For a reason unknown, Midoriya felt the flame of his confidence grow taller just by standing beside Ryukyu. The invisible power that felt like he can take on the world flooding the gates of his soul with vigor and intensity. I'm Deku, Ryukyu's sidekick, not yours. You won't take that away from me. A possessive growl groaned from the throat of Ryukyu, loud enough even for 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗍 to hear given the distance between them. She puffed her shoulders back to hold her ground and show that she isn't going anywhere, and neither is her sidekick. On the inside, a proud feeling enveloped the entirety of her heart when the words came spilling out from Midoriya's mouth. She was prepared for yet another successful attempt of 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗍 in taking one of her students again, but the end result was the complete flip of what she expected. Now the feeling of dread and sadness that once plagued onto her shoulders is gone, replaced with a hero's pride of their disciple. Until we meet again, then, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍𝗍 bluntly stated. Come, Togata. We are leaving. But, see you around, Midoriya. Or see you at school, 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗍𝗏. He said the last word with a bit of emphasis while looking to Ryukyu, who in turn directed her eyes to him with a smile on her face. The blonde sidekick joined his own hero at their side as they both made their way down the street, either to conduct a patrol or return back to their home office. Once out of range, Midoriya sighed heavily. That was unexpected. Midoriya, Ryukyu said sternly. I am sorry. About what 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍 said when I first saw you at the sports festival. He widened his eyes in all directions. Wait, you heard that? When I focus directly onto something I want to attentively pay attention to, I can hear what normal humans cannot. Though it only works if I try really strong. Otherwise my hearing is equivalent of a standard human's. Oh. So, I guess that explains why you weren't able to tell what Hato-senpai was yelling about last week behind the door. A light pink tinge came across her cheeks. She coughed to make the embarrassment go away. If it wasn't for Ms. Hoshiko coming into her personal office and stating the possible goal of what Ryukyu had for the boy, she wouldn't even know at all. Why, yes, of course. That is why I couldn't deduce what she had said. But no more on that. I am very sorry about what he said to you. As your respective hero, I cannot bring myself to deny such claims because it is all true. I did think you weren't ready yet back then because of your nervous behavior. For me, you were just so jittery and unprepared socially. I didn't want to move you into the limelight knowing you might potentially freak or even break under the strain. If you hold any ill feelings against me, you have every reason to do so. I won't blame you. Nah. It's okay. Now it was her turn to stare at him with widened orbs of yellow confusion. Ryukyu-san, I think you're also forgetting the part where I said you're the only hero to actually observe me. Watching me for the right time to choose me. I don't think even 𝗏𝗛𝗏 would have done that for me. Which lets me know that you at least have an interest in choosing me as a sidekick. And that alone means so much for me that I can't thank you enough, honestly. Even though it's just the first day as your official sidekick, I feel like a proper MSTR disciple bond has been made. I trust you. I just hope that you can trust me too. The proud feeling around her heart only grew tighter upon his speech. In truth, she wanted to jump up and down in joy knowing that her own student holds her in such high standing. But being a fully grown adult, that would only look silly. At least in her own eyes. With her hands she reached up for the bangs of his mask and lightly fixed them due to a slight bend in their posture. All while holding a smile on her face. I trust you, Midoriya. I trust you greatly to know that in time, you will become one of the world's greatest heroes. If you would allow me to be your teacher, that is. He puffed his easy in a chuckle as he idly stood still for her to make adjustments on his mask. The golden yellow slit pupils staring back at him with a determined gaze to see him grow into a fine hero. The only other time he's seen this gaze was in All Might when he handed the strand of hair to him at the beach the morning of the entrance exam. This feeling made him feel quite impervious to all damage that may be sustained. It felt so amazing, so needed after a long duration of being seen as useless in a society dominated by quirks. So flawless. Midoriya silently hummed to himself while tapping the eraser of his pencil against his top lip. For 2 days after his conducted patrol with Ryukyu, he's been thinking about a certain aspect that occurred during the activity. His encounter with 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗍 and the learning that Togata used to attend Ryukyu's agency first before attending his current one. The reasons were laid out before the first year like a deck of cards to see, but still. He couldn't see his senior making a decision such as that. Permeation written onto paper is very easy to understand, so much so that even a young child can get a firm understanding of it. It allows the user's body to phase through any solid object or surface at will. It sounded simple, but on the contrary, not at all. As Togata described it, he has to focus on each body part separately in order for his quirk to properly function and not collide with an object instead of phasing through it. This required a careful and precise training detail that focused on the concentration of each limb while still maintaining the thought on what to do next. Yet what stuck out to him the most is that there was no official record of Togata's apprenticeship with Ryukyu at all. The school systems in Japan use a specialized database that records which students attend an agency while also retaining the ones that used to be there as well in the years past. Permission granted by Principal Nizu, Midoriya utilized this database through the library computers with the help of Mr. Aizawa. But when they pulled up the student record for Ryukyu, the only student to ever be recorded is Hato and his own. So what exactly did happen with 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘? He wanted to know more. Bring, very well done today, students. Ectoplasm, the teacher for mathematics praised at the sound of the lunch bell. Do remember to study for your quiz coming on Friday. Have a good day. Midoriya finished jotting down anything he missed onto his notebook and quickly made haste to put away his supplies. While many of the other students exited the room on their way to the cafeteria, one student decided to stay behind for her classmate. Hey Deku. Oh. He looked up and smiled at his friend. Hey Uraraka. Are you okay today? You kinda look like you were in outer space for majority of this PRD. Yeah, I was just thinking about something that occurred to me on Monday. It was really strange. What happened? Midoriya slung the straps of his backpack over his shoulders and walked down the column of his class arrangement. Well, you know 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏, right? The one that showed us what work studies can do for us. I don't think I'll ever forget what he did to us that day. It was pretty embarrassing. I ran into him and 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗍 during our patrol and I found out that 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 didn't always go to his agency. He went to Ryukyu's at first but broke away because she couldn't properly help him in training his quirk. The duo rounded around the door leading into the classroom, melting with the rest of the student population making for the cafeteria. Midoriya accidentally bumped into a student's shoulder, both giving an apology to the other before continuing on their journey. When I went to go look up the records for her agency attendance, I couldn't find his name. Only 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's and mine. It's like he never went there in the first place, but if two pro heroes acknowledge the fact that he did, why would the database not officially state it? It's like there's something else they're trying to hide. That does sound a bit odd. Well, why don't you go ask him personally? I'm sure maybe there's a specific reasoning for wanting to keep it a secret. Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping on doing during lunch. Hey, what about you? Have you got any heroes you're thinking of doing studies under? Honestly, not really. Uraraka scratched the back of her head gently. I was kinda thinking of maybe going with the pussycats. Maybe I could use my zero gravity in some manner out in the natural terrain. I don't know, I'm still kind of thinking around. Well, that's good. It'll give you the opportunity of doing some window shopping by reviewing which heroes do which. I'm sure you'll find one soon. Yeah. Hopefully. The duo of first years pushed aside the double doors leading into the cafeteria and were flooded with a bumbling noise of the student population. Sitting nearby at a table were present Mike and 13 acting as the overseers for any unwanted activity. Well, I need to go to speak with him to see if I can get more details. I'll see you later. Bye Deku, see you later. They both waved each other off before turning in opposite directions, with her going to their usual lunch table and him making the journey for where the big three were located during this PRD. Even through the sea of moving bodies hustling about, he can still catch glimpses of a periwinkle head blabbering her head off about quirks and different ideas for one. It didn't take long for one of the third years to realize that a guest was coming their way, with Amajiki being the first to speak. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And I said, oh my gosh, really, that sounds like a really cool quirk. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Quirk allows him to manipulate objects within a certain telekinetic field, which is so cool. And also 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. There's this guy in the second years and he sounds really cool but wants to do something weird. His name is Rick and he keeps saying he wants to roll something 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Yes. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 joyfully responded to the group introvert. Behind you. The school idol hummed as she glanced over her shoulder to spot her junior companion at their mutual agency. A smile popped into her face. Wait, Midoriya. Hi. I just wanted to ask something from one of you guys, if that's okay. Sure, what is it? 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. The blonde third year perked his head up at the sound of his name. Can we speak in private for a moment, please? If not, it's okay, I wouldn't want to disturb you. Of course, man. If it's something important, then I ain't gonna turn it down just because of lunch. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 lifted himself from his seat and joined Midoriya at his side. We'll be back in a bit. But see ya. Here, follow me. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 gestured for his junior to stay behind him, as they did so willingly. The duo of third and first years weaved through the crowds upon crowds of students, trying not to accidentally bump into another because of their weaving action. Eventually, they both arrived at the corner of the cafeteria and walked through a set of double doors where majority of the noise died down to buffers added into the frame. Here we are. Nice and quiet. So, what is it you'd want to ask me? Before I start, if there's anything you don't feel comfortable answering, then it's okay for you to decline. I wouldn't want to make you feel like you're being forced or anything, huh? Not at all, man. Just let the questions fly and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. Okay. 𝗵𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘 exhaled deeply before starting his questionnaire. He used to go to Ryukyu's agency before 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗏. Right? Yep. It was during my second year when I first got into work studies. She was my first chosen hero and I was her first student. So you're openly acknowledging the fact that you did attend her agency? Yes, sorry, Bob. Why, what's up? Well, I went to go look at the records for attendance to her agency, but your name isn't on the list. Only Heido's and my own. Oh, really? 𝗏𝗏 crossed his arms with a hand going up to his chin. That's odd. I don't know why it's not on there when I should be. Maybe it was a computer error. It wasn't. Mr. Aizawa pulled up the most updated file for it, but still. Your name isn't on there. Do you know any reason why? He hummed and began pacing back and forth in a 4-step line in each direction. A face of intense concentration took over the once happy face of 𝗏𝗏 as 𝗵𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘 patiently waited for an answer. At least, he hopes he would be given an answer. After several moments, 𝗏𝗏 came to a standstill with back turned to his junior. Wait, that's why. 𝗵𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘 slightly peered around. 𝗏𝗏-senpai. I think I know the reason as to why my name not be on that list. But you have to promise me something. He whipped around to face the first year. If this is in fact why my name isn't on the record, then be sure to keep this to yourself. No doubt Principal Nizu or even Ryukyu would want this to be hidden from official documents, so whatever you do, don't mention this anybody else. Got it? Yes. I understand. Good. 𝗏𝗏 bore his usual smile as always before starting his recollection. You may have already been told this, but Ryukyu couldn't exactly help me in the greatest ways with my permeation. She set up a great training guide, no doubt, but she just couldn't find a comfortable grasp on it to train me. For weeks I was left in the same spot that I had been before attending her agency, and while my classmates around me improved, I didn't. It didn't anger me nor did it upset me, but there are people out there who needed saving. And in order for me to do that, I had to get a grasp on efficiently using my quirk. So then, Sir came around to her office one day and was speaking to her in her personal office. They were arguing really loudly and quite frankly it was a bit scary. Honestly, I can't remember the exact details about what they were yelling about, but I didn't want to get caught in the mix. So I just watched as two pro heroes argued with one another. It wasn't until the arguing was done that Sir turned to me and showed me a regimen that he personally created to help me with my permeation. Everything on that list caught my eye in the right way, and I knew that this was the exact way for me to go about my training. I needed this like people needed me. So, you said yes? He nodded. I did. Don't get me wrong, Ryukyu is a good teacher, but my quirk was just out of her league. She couldn't keep up with it, so I agencies. Right there in her own office, and today I'm still ashamed of it. I should have at least done so in private or spoken about it with her before making the change, but I was so happy to see that finally there was a way for me to improve on my quirk for the better. So drunk off of my own happiness, I said yes in front of her own eyes. I'm such an idiot. Don't be. I mean, I would be happy too if another hero came up to me saying that they had a format for me to help train my quirk. You had every right to feel that way. But something tells me that isn't the main cause for your name being hidden. Isn't it? Silently and slowly, 𝗏𝗏 took 3 fingers and dragged them from the upper left corner of his sissy down to the lower right corner of his torso. Remembering the events of that day, the argument turned into a heated moment between two heroes. Sir and I began walking out of the office, and Ryukyu quickly ran up to me saying that she can do better, that she can study more to help me with my training. But Sir wanted to leave already, and he gave a push to her shoulder to force her back. She pushed back at him with her amazing strength, which caused them to grapple with one another. Doing what I thought was best, I jumped into the mix trying to separate them. They were so angry with each other, and for a split second it felt like they wanted to kill one another. While in the middle of everything, I didn't see the hand of claws coming right for me and striking me across my ziki in a slash. 𝗵𝗫𝗧𝗟𝗘's breath grew rough and shaky. She hit you? It was a complete accident though. I knew that deep down inside she was aiming for Sir, but since I decided to jump in the mix of everything, she accidentally nicked me instead. Ryukyu would never purposely harm a child, not even a high schooler like me. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 turned to the window behind him and leaned onto the bar that acted as a support beam running parallel to the floor. While I was in the hospital recovering, she came to me one day begging for forgiveness, and she was crying. She kept thinking that it was all her fault for why I'm in the bed and not training right now, and that I deserved better. I kept telling her that it was okay and that I would never hold an ill feelings towards her because I knew that she just wanted to make me stronger and better. But still, she kept placing all the blame on herself. For weeks after that, Ryukyu became insecure about her ability to teach and look over her students. It wasn't until 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 arrived at her office that her usual demeanor as the Dragoon hero came back in full force and confidence. Which is good, because I wouldn't want to see any hero sad or feel like they're not good enough because of me. That's the worst feeling in the world to know. So, in conclusion, Midoriya said, "Your name is being hidden from the list because she accidentally struck you. And more than likely she still feels like the fault still falls onto her shoulders to this day, which probably makes her think she didn't deserve you as a student." I believe so. Midoriya thought long and strong over the event retold to him. It made him feel wallow to know Ryukyu still held the lion's guilt for what happened to 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏, and she had every reason to feel that way. But still, knowing his teacher still grieved over the failure of teaching a student didn't sit well with him, and he wanted to do something to make her feel prouder of being a teacher. Even if it was a failed bond with one of her students. And he thinks he knows a way to do that just in time before his next patrol after school today. Luckily for him, he had a great personal support ally with the knack of stitching together items on the fly. Ryukyu looked in the mirror as she combed her hair downwards in preparation for the patrol to come within the next half hour. After the event that transpired on Monday, when Midoriya firmly and confidently stated that he belongs to her own office, her liking of the student has grown tremendously. She had a feeling that he was prideful about which heroes he looked up to based on the bangs of his mask resembling that of All Might's, but to hear it in verbal words sat comfortably well with her. Ping! The sound of the elevator pinging rang through her open door as she continued to comb through her hair for any finishing touches. "Oh my! Hoshiko!" Ryukyu called. "It's your new and improved sidekick ready to take on the world with you. Send him in, please." Ryukyu made a final swoop of the comb before placing it down and reaching for the headband with clawed mask to don onto her head. She heard the door leading into her personal office creak open with footsteps growing nearer. "Midoriya, you're here early, which is exceptionally punctual. A hero must always be on time, if not earlier than most, to get a head start on the day's workload. I say that even though I myself am not ready yet. How shameful. Give me just a minutetto." Her eyes befell over her new disciple with a look of observation and wonder. "What is?" "Hi, Ryukyu-sensei," Midoriya said in his new costume design that was so generously whipped up by 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. And with masterful design too. Majority of the outfit remained the same in terms of support padding and additional bracers to absorb the shockwaves. But the more noticeable changes came with the first being a color palette swap. Instead of his entire outfit being clad in an emerald green, it was dark red with a few trimmings of the previous green running in a scaly pattern around the circumference of his shoulders. A shoulder cape of the same color was attached to his right side, flowing behind him with 3 slash marks on the bottom and a singular slash going through all 3 to match her own 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. His arm bracers were white in color and his boots a solid black with dark red decal lines running about. A drastic change came to his mask with black dragon wings sprouting out from behind, and a claw formation obscuring his right ear. It was perfectly identical to her own costume while still retaining his own touch with slight green streaks running about in cheek areas and around his eyes. Nervously he rubbed the back of his head due to her not saying a word. Do you like it? My friend 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏 made it and I think she did a good job, Ryukyu-sensei." Ryukyu silently paced across her room to her student and stood before him with eyes drifting about. She held an open-mouth expression in curiosity as he silently stood there in wait for her opinion. After several moments, her mouth closed and began a spree of emotionless words. The colors off the wings are horribly tilted, the claws on your mask are shorter, the bracers are the wrong tint of white, the cape is too long, the slashes are too yellow and bright, your boots shouldn't have red decal lines, and the scales on your shoulders are quite frankly dreadful. Midoriya sunk his shoulders sadly and downtrodden with disappointment. Oh, pbbbt haha. I am joking, Midoriya. This costume is remarkably well made. He perked his head back up like a happy dog with a smile etching over his palate. You like it? I quite honestly more than like it. She began pacing around him in circular motion. The design of this new costume is masterfully done to replicate my own, while still keeping some of the more base elements of your previous costume, of course. Ryukyu reached for the shoulder cape and kneaded the soft material in her hand, overlooking the mark of the dragon at the bottom. Well, I think this cape might be a bit too long, but nonetheless this new design is quite appealing. Oh, thank goodness. I thought you wouldn't like it. Ryukyu stepped around to his front with a curious raised eyebrow. My opinion matters that much to you? I mean, you're the only hero to ever keep an interest in me, so I just wanted to make sure everything was right. Everything is swell, Midoriya. There is no need to worry. Oh, but your wings are just a bit off balance, so allow me to fix that for you. Ryukyu stepped closer and reached behind his head to adjust the black wings sprouting out from behind the mask. As she did so, Midoriya had nowhere else to look but into the yellow slits of draconian eyes that focused onto his accessory. The glimmer inside of those pupils reflected back to him in the lighting for the room, while also reflecting back something he's already stated before. The statement grew hotter as she had to inch closer to his face to get a comfortable standing for the adjustments. Ryukyu-sensei. She's so appealing. This is Dragon 2-2 on standby to catch newbies. 𝗔𝗨𝗧𝗟𝗘 ready, bouncing Betty. You've got this, Deku. Well, I'd say our patrol today was satisfactory. We've gone through a bit of review of what I've went over on Monday, but there's still plenty more for you to learn, so do not limit the ceiling of your knowledge to this week alone. Now we're on to the more fun part of this agency. Training your quirk. The helicopter on the helipad hovered away with propellers sending gusts of wind onto the pad and into Midoriya's costume, his wings pushed back from the force with cape flailing from his shoulder. He recognized the giant weapon mechanism attached to the bottom of the aviation vehicle as a giant cannon welded into the hull. Spray pointed onto the cannon with royal blue paint were the words, "Special Weapon 𝗧𝗓𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 nervous not forming just underneath his Adam's apple. Looking past over the edge of the rooftop, his anxiety only grew worse. Maybe after all of these years on this planet, he had a slight fear of heights. Ryukyu-sensei, may I ask what you plan on having me do so that I can say no and go back to school? She chuckled and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Do not worry. The pilots in the helicopter are former Japanese Air Self-Defense Force with near-perfect scores in marking their targets. They've done this for years in the military, and if something does go wrong, which I highly doubt it will, Nijire-chan will jump into action. You are in safe hands, Deku. Yeah, you know what, I think I'm good. Thank you. You don't even know what you'll be doing. Yeah, because I don't want to. See ya. Midoriya quickly spun on the heel of his feet and tried to bolt for the door leading to the staircase. A hand latched into his right arm at his bicep and pulled him back to grab his other arm, lifting him clean off of his feet. He flailed and kicked to squirm out of her surprisingly tight hold on him. No, wait, Ryukyu-sensei, wait. Do not allow your fears to cloud your mind, Deku, she said as she waddled over to the rooftop edge with student in her clutches. Think back to the assessment I had you undergo. Because if you don't, well, it's going to be quite difficult for city laborers to scrape you completely off of the sidewalk. Midoriya continued to flop about like a fish out of water, but with futile results. Eventually Ryukyu finally came to the roof's end, dangling his body completely over the edge on the verge of free falling. The cardinal rule of not looking down went completely past the judgment of his thoughts as he took a single glance down. He can practically imagine his heart falling like a stone and becoming an organ water balloon over the head of an unfortunate pedestrian down below. Oh, Cammy, help me. Are you ready, Deku? No. Good, because I wouldn't want to hold you up all day. Remember, the shockwaves go a long way. What matters most is how you utilize them, And in which body part? Oh geez, okay. Midoriya took a deep breath to regain his composure, the beating heart rapidly away inside of his ribcage with a painful aching. Okay, I can do this. I'm ready. Oh dear, Ryukyu said. Did I remember to put the safety net inside of the weapon to catch you? I don't think I did. Huh? Good luck? Was her final statement before she released her grip on his arms, causing him to plummet towards the earth. Ah. Dragon 2-2, have eyes on target freefall. Holding. Come on Deku. Don't let the special weapon 𝗧𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 parallel to the ground. The wind aggressively breezed against the mask of his costume, even pushing the hair bristles underneath the accessory. His cape took a wild direction in every which way imaginable, even at one point slapping across his calves with a painful WHP. Though the sturdy material of his shoes with padded support took most of the damage. The sickening feeling of his internal organs sloshing about inside slowly became apparent, with the equally uncomfortable sensation of adrenaline being added into the mix. Closer and closer he drew nearer to the ground, the ant silhouettes of humans below becoming larger and clearer in context. His time to concentrate and hatch up an idea to become a human stain grew smaller with every passing centimeter. But Ryukyu had faith in him to become one of the greatest heroes this world has ever seen, so he needed to make sure he couldn't fall short of that faith. He wouldn't allow that to happen. He couldn't. Steeling his nerves to finally act, he pulled his right arm back, allowing the fluidity of one for all to course through his veins and muscular fibers. Midoriya knew that he needed to utilize her lesson of shockwaves and either A, throw a punch at the last possible second so that he can nullify majority of the falling he's gone through and land on the ground with a thump, but a soft enough thump to no damage anything major. Or B, continuously throw out punches to push himself back up to the rooftop where his mentor awaited him. Needing to just take a single step, he threw out the limbs straight below to impede all momentum downwards. The initial shockwave from the impact was enough to halt his actions, but he forgot one of the more important rules about a body in gravitational freefall. He may have stopped his body from moving but not the organs and fluids inside. Which meant that his heart, BLD and brain were just a few of the internal components that continued to move inside. This caused an intense feeling of nausea and dizziness which made him lose focus. The only thing that really came into focus was the need to spill out today's lunch in liquid form with an off-palate coloring. Midoriya once again began to fall with body limp and weak from the nausea overloading his senses. He was halfway down the skyscraper building and reaching into the danger zone as the wind naturally turned his body upwards to the sky. Safety net away. The helicopter aimed the cannon towards Midoriya and propelled a net enclosed by a chain system at first before releasing into a fully fledged netting system. A large metallic wire attached the net to its propulsion system thick enough to withstand even the heaviest of weights. Chasing after its target, the net engulfed the student's body entirely, with the helicopter doing a quick sweeping motion in the air to secure the body. With Sidekick in tow, it reversed the wire up to the cannon system at a mediocre pace. Several minutes of hanging in mid-air by a net caused Midoriya's senses to wobble all over the scale. It felt like somebody had gut-punched him with a boxing glove filled with iron, lead, and brass knuckles attached over the front. Every now and then the urge to hurl would make its presence known inside of his throat, accompanied by a very sour and unwelcome taste. Delivering the newbie. Midoriya arrived at the top of the helipad where Ryukyu awaited as she crossed her arms and looked at him like a fish in a net, an amused smile over her face. "Did you have fun?" She chuckled while retrieving her broken fish of a disciple from the net. Scooping him up into her arms, Ryukyu gently placed him down in a sitting position, holding his back up with a hand at the base of his neck while kneeling beside him. "Let's have you recover for a while before we move on to the next course of action. If you feel like you can't continue after the allotted time, then we can end it for today. There is no need to push yourself. The smaller steps matter the most." If a smaller step consisted of falling from the roof of a skyscraper to your possible death, yes, that is exactly what it consists of. Ryukyu waved her free arm above her head to the idle helicopter. "Copy that." Circling back around. The chopper took off past the buildings and doing a large semicircle maneuver to allow the safety net to recharge back into its propulsion system. As it did so, Midoriya pinched his nose to bring his shaken senses back down to the earth with slightly grit teeth. It didn't help either that his heartbeat was at a much slower yet still painful rhythm with the BLD rushing through his head. He can practically feel each individual cell traveling in his bloodstream like messengers from the land of oxygen. Though messengers were an unwanted guest right now. As he sat silently on the helipad concrete, the gently flowed underneath his mask, causing him to lightly itch at his nose. But in doing so, it caused him to turn his head just enough to catch Ryukyu's facial features. He had already known that the Dragoon hero was so appealing even in the normal lighting of a standard room. But with the sun casting down at her at just the perfect angle to create a light shadow on the side of her face closest to him, she seemed like an angel. The blonde shining with a gentle gleam underneath the health rays of a star. Her stoic yet cute face partially hidden by the headband with claws going down her right eye. It all went past the numerical value of beauty when she gazed down at him and barely, just barely, twinged her lips upwards into the smallest of gestures. "You doing okay?" she asked softly. "Why? Yeah, I'm doing okay. Good." She patted the base of his neck softly as to not accidentally nick him with her nails. "Just a few more moments and we'll see if you can continue or not. Take your time. There's no need to rush through training if all you're going to be doing is ending up with a queasy stomach. You didn't have a big lunch, did you?" "An entire bowl of ramen with miso soup because I was hungry." She nodded her head with a measly scrunch of her lips, slowly and secretly increasing the distance between his mouth and her body. "That's lovely." 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗟𝗘, a low vibration can be heard from one of the many compartments circling around Midoriya's waistline. It was loud enough for Ryukyu to pick up on it, quickly doing a frisk of his belt to find which pouch held the device. Located directly on his side was his phone vibrating away with a caller ID, and the picture of a blonde man with two prominent bangs standing upwards on end. Ryukyu took a quick glance at the caller ID before holding it out to him. "I did not realize you and All Might exchanged numbers." "Well, he's one of my instructors at UA, and our quirks are very similar to one another, so he's given me advice every now and then to help with my training. I wonder what he's calling about now," he replied, taking the device into his left hand. Tapping onto the answer button, he raised the phone up to his ear. "Hello, Yaha. I am here to scream in your ear." "Ooh." Midoriya fumbled with his phone from the sudden intrusion of All Might and dropped it completely. He was about to reach for it when Ryukyu was quicker on the draw, catching it with agile reflexes and lightning-fast speed. She handed his phone back to him with the same smile as before. "Thanks. Of course." Midoriya placed the device back up to his ear this time with a much more tighter hold around the back of it. "All Might. Aha, did I scare you?" "No, not at all. I wasn't even startled in the slightest." From beside him, he can hear Ryukyu quietly chuckle at his statement, which for whatever odd reason seemed to fill his ears with happiness. The emotion slightly startling him over a call from his true and original mentor. "What is it, All Might?" "Well, first I'd like to start off by saying I am very pleased with the new design of your hero outfit. It is, obviously, supposed to resemble Ryukyu, right? The heroes whose sidekick you've decided to become." "Yeah, that's right. Sorry about removing the bangs from the mask. 𝗏𝗡 said they didn't go that well with the wings on the back." "Oh, I'm not mad. I'm actually very content with the decision." "Really? How come?" "Young Midoriya, do you remember what I told you during the class PRD where you were all practicing your super moves?" "Yeah. You said that I was still trying to imitate you even though I shouldn't." "Precisely, my boy. By removing the bangs from your mask, you've unknowingly taken a step into your own direction, away from the route that I have already walked. Though, I ask that you do not try to imitate Ryukyu in any way as well. Otherwise, you may as well be known in the same manner as an old friend of mine who copied every technique he ever came across. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen him in a while. Perhaps it's time I took a trip to the hidden village." "Well, in terms of quirks, Ryukyu-sensei and I are very different, obviously. I don't have the same type of mutation ability that hers does to fully transform into something else. No matter the quirk, you must always find your own standing as a hero. Which leads me to my next and most obvious point. Stop using your arms, you buffoon of a child. Are you watching me right now? 𝗵𝗫𝗍 peered at his surroundings, thinking he might catch a glimpse of All Might secretly observing his successor from either one of the building windows or down below. Though now that he's actually done the action, he feels a bit silly for thinking so. And it didn't help that Ryukyu gave an odd eyebrow as she watched her sidekick look around at nothing but an empty rooftop with clear skies. Of course not, you fool. I was doing a bit of browsing around in the city a few days ago when I saw you falling from the skies. At first I thought you were in actual danger, but then I saw young Hado and Ryukyu on the chase to quickly make the snatch. There was a pause in All Might's retelling. Young 𝗵𝗫𝗍, why must you always resort into using your arms even after damaging them so many times? Have you forgotten about your new patent? Of course not. It's just that, well, I don't think I'm comfortable yet with using shoot style around Ryukyu. I might mess up with the force output from one of my kicks and I might injure myself with the blame falling on her. I don't want that to happen. When a pro hero takes on a sidekick from either a school such as you, or an amateur hero new to the scene, they fully understand the risks of doing so. Any and all injuries will fall onto their shoulders. You don't think they know that? Ugh. 𝗵𝗫𝗍 grumbled and mumbled in his spots silently. I don't want to be a nuisance for her if all I'm going to be doing is injuring myself. Then what good of a sidekick would I be? Have faith in Ryukyu, young 𝗵𝗫𝗍. She is an excellent hero in the standings at her age and undoubtedly takes care of those around her as well. As she has chosen you to be her sidekick, you must choose her in placing your trust. She will look after you. Do you understand, my boy? Yeah. I guess so. Ryukyu? The voice of Ms. Hoshiko called to the pro hero from the door leading into the staircase. She flapped a paper in her hand to notify of the subject. Fat Gum just called, says he'd like to speak with you about that case. One moment please. Do you think you are willing to continue? Ryukyu asked 𝗵𝗫𝗍. I think maybe a few more minutes. Probably after you're done with what Ms. Hoshiko has for you. Remember, do not push yourself. It is okay to withdraw for today if that is what you feel. Ryukyu released her hold on his neck and walked over to where her secretary waited behind the door. She took the paper in her hands and began on overlooking it with verbal details being spewed to her. Don't withdraw, young 𝗵𝗫𝗍. Finish it out strong. I don't know, I still feel a bit woozy. But at the same time, I want to keep going. I don't want things to end with me failing on the first attempt. May I ask, what exactly does she have you doing? Throwing me off a roof? Ish. And I thought Gran Torino was hardball on me. Ooh, but this is the perfect opportunity for you to show off shoot style. Go jump off the roof. Again. What? All Might chuckled in mischievousness over the phone. Have faith, young 𝗵𝗫𝗍. Have faith in your shoot style and have faith in Ryukyu. Click. The dead tone of a hung-up line buzzed in 𝗵𝗫𝗍's ear as he turned his phone off and placing it back into the pouch where it originally came from. He took a quick glance over to Ryukyu to see that she still was in conversation with the secretary, both of them speaking with one another once the other finishes. After looking to his hero, he peered over to edge of the roof from which he was dropped. As he pondered over the stone edge and looking into the abyss of a fatal drop, two things clicked into his mind like a missing puzzle piece. What matters most is how you utilize them, and in which body part. Have you forgotten about your new patent? Oh, I'm such an idiot. He smacked himself in the forehead with a palm at the sudden realization. He should have known that Ryukyu wanted to see if he was smart enough to use one for all in other areas beside his arms. The answer was so obvious to him that it was hidden. But of course in dire situations he always resorted to what All Might would do, which is to utilize his arms for a wind-breaking punch. He saw that Ryukyu was in fact still talking to Ms. Hoshiko, which worked perfectly for him because although he would say yes to continue his training, he has a feeling she might not let him do so. Even he knows that his head is still a bit watery in the skull with his brain sloshing about. But nevertheless he wanted to impress her. He wanted to show her that she didn't make a mistake in choosing him as a sidekick. He wears his new hero outfit with pride and confidence, and he plans on making the most of it today. The sound of helicopter propellers cutting through the air grew closer as he gazed up to see the helicopter hovering above him, ready to either land or another training run. Settling for the latter, Midoriya staggered onto his feet and slowly made his way to the rooftop edge. A few missteps almost caused him to fumble and tumble onto the concrete, but he wanted to continue. For the sake of his dream of becoming the world's greatest hero. Just like All Might. Not like All Might. This was his dream. Nobody else's. Deku. The voice of Ryukyu called to him from behind. He also heard the sound of boots clicking against the helipad, drawing closer to him with a hustle. "Where are you going?" "Training," he replied back, slightly unsure if he was doing the right thing or not. "I think you are still uneasy. I can see it in your steps. Sit down and take a breather. We can end it for today." No answer, which caused the boots to break into a jog. Deku. Midoriya quickened his own pace and can see over the edge of the roof into the drop below. He's so close to showing her what he can really do. So many people were trusting him to improve, trusting him to become better. All Might, his mother, his classmates, and even the people who do not yet know of his existence all trust in him to be his greatest. He couldn't allow a simple mishap to throw off his progress. "Deku, stop right now. I'm sorry, Ryukyu-sensei. But I can keep going. I must keep going." Deku. Midoriya finally arrived at the edge of the rooftop with boots practically right behind him. The heavy breeze wafting up from below caused his track to slightly halt at the remembrance that once again he is about to drop off from solid ground and into a free fall. But this time would be much different than his previous trial. This time he was going to put into play his new patent on a very crude, barely beginnings of an idea he just thought of just now. Whether or not this new idea of his was going to work he didn't exactly know at that moment in time, but what he did know is that he must place his faith into Ryukyu to not put an end to his little experiment. In the air through his teeth, he pushed all thoughts aside. And jumped. Ryukyu dove in an attempt to swipe at his shoulder cape, but the cloth's wild movements only threaded in between her fingers with no room to grab hold of. Now she watched as her disciple fell again towards the earth with her teeth gritted and her worry meter going absolutely haywire. Midoriya concentrated and activated the stockpiled gift of One for All. He pushed majority of the power into his legs as he bent his right leg inwards to his stomach with the left leg hanging loose. This is it. One for All shoot style, with enough power pushed to his right leg, he kicked at the air below into a straight kick, and flew upwards with the shockwaves acting as boosters. Dragon Step. Pushing down with his left leg, he mimicked the same action he did with his right, and slowly began to regain his height upwards while simultaneously crossing the space between buildings. It was his first time in doing a maneuver such as this, and since he didn't give it much thought in how much power he had to put in from falling, his legs were beginning to become a bit sore already. His thighs were creaking from the energy output he repeatedly pushed out, and already in 3 steps, the pain was catching up. But he couldn't quit now. He wanted to see just how far he can go with this new ability of his. Although it was only by a few feet or so before descending back down, Midoriya was able to gain back a good amount of height lost with each step. And the distance he put in between each one grew longer as he began to have a slow grasp on the technique put into it. He had to intently focus on where the energy flowed in his leg and when to push it into his lower area for the step to work properly. Too much energy in his thigh meant it was painful to store it in a singular location, and too little energy meant his height wouldn't be as high. It took a tremendous amount of focus to do so, and any misstep could result in him falling back down. But he trusted Ryukyu and her assistance. If she says that he is in safe hands, then he trusted those hands to make the catch. After dragon stepping through the air for several minutes, he came onto the rooftop of another skyscraper just a bit higher than his own agency's. Once he was over the building and at a safe level, he gave one last push of his right leg and rolled onto the gravel of the building roof. His legs ached in every nook of his muscle with a burning hot feeling in his thighs. He puffed his tea heavily to regain the oxygen that was lost from the extreme effort. Beads of sweat began to tickle his ears. I did it. Heavy wings pushing against the earth became prominent, signaling the arrival of Ryukyu in her dragon form. The mythical being flapped her wings before descending onto the roof where her student lay and transformed back into her humanoid form. Boots crunched against the gravel at a slow pace over to the patch of gray where Midoriya lay with back against the roof. She gazed down at him with her head blocking the sun, casting a shadow onto his face from the blinding light. To be entirely truthful with you, I am slightly disappointed with you, Deku, she stated coldly. Huff, you are? He asked breathlessly. Yes. You still had not recovered from your previous attempt, and yet you disobeyed my request to sit back down. If you had fallen any more meters to the earth, you would have experienced the same thing you did earlier, possibly even worse. You should not push yourself for training when there is always another day. The words stabbed into his soul like verbal swords crafted by a 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗧 blacksmith. He had hoped to be hearing more inspiring words from her about how he managed to develop a new technique, albeit a very basic one. But no. Instead there he lay being scolded by the cold stoicism of the dragoon hero for refusing to follow her request. That hurt more than even the burning feeling in his legs. However, of course there's always a however. Ryukyu got onto both of her knees and sat beside him on the gravel, carefully lifting his upper body into her arms with legs still kicked out. She rested his head into her arms for a more comfortable position. I am pleased with how you handled the second attempt. You did so in the manner that I expected you to utilize in the first attempt, which is to repeatedly push out shockwaves to come back up. Hato told me that during the exercise with your class against 𝗏𝗏𝗏, you used your legs as a main method to attack instead of your fists, which is what I was hoping to see today. And I did. In fact, I am more than satisfied with how you handled this second run. Repeatedly pushing against gravity with your power in a stepping manner is ingenious. What are you going to call it? The dragon step. The dragon step. She nodded her head approvingly. I do believe I like that name. For the obvious reasons, of course. They both chuckled quietly as he lay against her arm, exhausted from the effort of both attempts. Eventually his eyes grew heavy, and before he knew it his consciousness slipped into the black void for a quick nap. She knew that he may have been drained from energy, but to see him turn out like a light in such a quick time did surprise her a bit. But he's earned the moment of rest and recovery. He did a fine job in surpassing her expectations, and bonus points for naming a technique after her physiology. Pushing the mask off of his face completely, she exposed his mouth and nose to the air for better breathing space. Upon doing so, she took an unknowing note of his facial features, the green hair flowing with the breeze appealing to her soft color taste. He's quite handsome for a first year, she thought to herself. Although she would never say this out loud in public lest she wanted the mischievous fiends of the press to completely twist her words into something lecherous and heinous. She wouldn't want to ruin his reputation as a student in attendance of the fabled 𝗔𝗧𝗟𝗃. But she stood by her words. He was quite handsome. Whoa, are you all right, Midoriya? Kirishima asked as he lay on the couch of the common room enjoying the television. He watched the successor slowly walk into the area with his legs similar to brittle, and each step made him wince quietly. Why up? I'm okay. Just a little sore from yesterday with Ryukyu. He pointed to the solo chair beside the couch. Is anybody? Go for it. Thank you. Midoriya practically fell like a stone onto the soft passing of the seat with legs flopping just a bit. His body turned into that of a balloon completely null of helium, on the verge of fusing with the inanimate object itself. That's better. Rough session, huh? Definitely, though it was mostly on my end for the way my legs feel. He patted against his thighs twice. I need to increase the strength of my legs much more than I thought. Before, with full cowling, it was just this aching feeling due to how much power I kept putting into them. But now with my new technique, I need to up my training. Why not take a trip to the weight room? Kirishima suggested. I'm sure there's plenty of guys who are willing to work out with you. I would, but Ryukyu told me to keep my agenda free today for something important. She never told me what it was about though, so I can't really take the time to go anywhere or do anything. That's a shame. Did she at least tell you when it was going to happen at least? Unfortunately not, for you. I guess you could watch the TV until the meantime, right? Sure. Kirishima lazily raised the remote control to the television, flipping through the channels mindlessly on the search for something to catch his eye. Gomu Gomu no elephanty. Click, are you gonna do the ORA thing? Yes. Oh my god. Click, I'm not going there to die, I'm going to find out if I'm really alive. Click, each separate attack must be delivered with intento kill. Dark Angel Flash. 𝗏𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗡 said as he continued to click through the infinite channels. Is there anything else besides anime? I'm already in one and a manga. Why don't you throw me in a fanfiction as a side character while you're at it? Well, it's because, wait a minute, what did you say? Nothing. Kirishima replied while lifting himself from the couch and exiting from the area. Nothing at all. Yes, you did. Midoriya pointed a wavering finger at him. You said something that sounded very, very existential. Nope. Then why nope. You heard nothing, protagonist. Midoriya watched his red-headed ally with an odd eyebrow, leaving the common room and heading up the stairs. It wasn't until the sound of ascending footsteps were gone that he fully processed what exactly was said. Protagonist. BZs, that must be Ryukyu. Midoriya thought, and fishing for the phone in his right pocket. Upon retrieval of the device, he found the caller ID to indeed be Ryukyu, the two of them given each other's numbers for quicker access instead of going through 𝗏𝗏 like a middle messenger. He answered the phone and placed it to his ear. Hello. Midoriya. How are you doing this day? Doing good. A bit sore from yesterday, but other than that everything is okay. Splendid. I was hoping you wouldn't be too injured from yesterday's trial, so to hear that is swell news. Do you recall me telling you that something important is happening? Yeah. I do. His mood darkened, ready for whatever task of utmost importance she may lay onto him. Is it happening now? Indeed it is. This requires that both you and 𝗏𝗏 group together at the school entrance and move together to this location. Immediately after this call you will change into casual wear and unite with your senior. The casual wear being important for this specific task. Are you ready, Midoriya? He swallowed the knot in his throat. She sounded foreboding, darkness plagued her words like a toxic sickness in the olden days. Midoriya has only been her sidekick for a short time, yet already she's assigning both he and 𝗏𝗏 an assignment of what sounded to be very high on the priority list. Whatever it is and whatever it required of him, he must be ready. I am Ryukyu-sensei. Could hang up, change, and meet with 𝗏𝗏 as I asked. I will send her the directions to the meet-up location where I will find you both there. Until then, Midoriya. Bye for now. He hung up the line on his end as requested, making himself rise shakily onto his legs. They were sore indeed, but this sounded to be one of the more important objectives he will probably ever be given. The request for casual wear did poke at him a bit in an odd manner, but if that's what his mentor requested, then so be it. He wouldn't argue against her. Unless he wanted to take another trip off of the skyscraper, which in this case with his legs. Definitely not. At least not today. Deciding to take the elevator instead of the pain-inducing stairs, he called for the lift to begin his first task given to him. For the Ryukyu Hero office. /welcome to the 7-star ball arcade. 𝗏𝗏 giddily cheered with a quick succession of clapping. I love coming here. Midoriya squeaked while staring up at the neon light of an arcade sign. It was an orange orb with 7 darker red stars pasted onto the front while riding a yellowish-colored cloud. The gears of his mind cranked as strong as they could into thinking it was all just a part of something much more important in terms of heroism. But judging by 𝗏𝗏's reaction and her constant hopping up and down, it wasn't. The whole way through he legitimately took it to his soul that what he was about to embark in was something far greater than he. Everything was set up in the correct manner to appear that way. Ryukyu's serious voice, the limited information on the task given to him. Even 𝗏𝗏's expression coming here was a bit toned down than her usual bubbly nature, but to arrive here, at a simple arcade, it felt like he had just built a house of cards 5 feet tall only for him to instructed into knocking it down himself with a sweep of his foot. You are already here. Ryukyu's voice appeared to their side. She leisurely paced to the sidekicks with an easygoing tempo and little to no regard for anything outside of an easy vibe. Her clothes were simple, yet somehow she made them appear to look like they belonged on the cover of a modeling magazine. A red zip-up sweater the same color of her 𝗏𝗏 was halfway closed with the zipper a lavish golden hue. Black solid leggings comfortably accentuated the curves of her luscious body with all white sneakers on her feet. A silver chain with the medallion of a dragon's tooth hanging just over her bust, a plain white shirt exposed from the open sweater. Obviously not in her hero garments, the headband with claws and wings was absent, revealing the entirety of her face in absolute beauty. She's so pretty. Midoriya. The simplistic aspect of your outfit is rather charming. She complimented. He opted for a completely plain long-sleeve emerald green shirt with the cuffs hugging his wrists tightly, denim dark blue jeans with his usual red shoes. She turned to Hato. And you, as always, the most adorable. The third year wore her usual forest green skirt with school lower garments of socks and shoes, the blazer replaced by a twist her words into something lecherous and heinous. She wouldn't want to ruin his reputation as a student in attendance of the fabled you. But she stood by her words. He was quite handsome. Whoa, are you all right, Midoriya? Kirishima asked as he lay on the couch of the common room enjoying the television. He watched the successors slowly walk into the area with his legs similar to brittle, and each step made him wince quietly. Why up? I'm okay. Just a little sore from yesterday with Ryukyu. He pointed to the solo chair beside the couch. Is anybody? Go for it. Thank you. Midoriya practically fell like a stone onto the soft passing of the seat with legs flopping just a bit. His body turned into that of a balloon completely null of helium, on the verge of fusing with the inanimate object itself. That's better. Rough session, huh? Definitely, though it was mostly on my end for the way my legs feel. He patted against his thighs twice. I need to increase the strength of my legs much more than I thought. Before, with full cowling, it was just this aching feeling due to how much power I kept putting into them. But now with my new technique, I need to up my training. Why not take a trip to the weight room? Kirishima suggested. I'm sure there's plenty of guys who are willing to work out with you. I would, but Ryukyu told me to keep my agenda free today for something important. She never told me what it was about though, so I can't really take the time to go anywhere or do anything. That's a shame. Did she at least tell you when it was going to happen at least? Unfortunately not, for you. I guess you could watch the TV until the meantime, right? Sure. Kirishima lazily raised the remote control to the television, flipping through the channels mindlessly on the search for something to catch his eye. Gomu Gomu no Elephanty. Click, are you gonna do the ORA thing? Yes. Oh my god. Click, I'm not going there to die, I'm going to find out if I'm really alive. Click, each separate attack must be delivered with intento kill. Dark Angel Flash. Man, Kirishima said as he continued to click through the infinite channels. Is there anything else besides anime? I'm already in one, and a manga. Why don't you throw me in a fanfiction as a side character while you're at it? Well, it's because, wait a minute, what did you say? Nothing. Kirishima replied while lifting himself from the couch and exiting from the area. Nothing at all. Yes, you did. Midoriya pointed a wavering finger at him. You said something that sounded very, very existential. Nope. Then why nope. You heard nothing, protagonist. Midoriya watched his red-headed ally with an odd eyebrow, leaving the common room and heading up the stairs. It wasn't until the sound of ascending footsteps were gone that he fully processed what exactly was said. Protagonist. BZ, that must be Ryukyu. Midoriya thought, and fishing for the phone in his right pocket. Upon retrieval of the device, he found the caller ID to indeed be Ryukyu, the two of them given each other's numbers for quicker access instead of going through Hato like a middle messenger. He answered the phone and placed it to his ear. Hello. Midoriya. How are you doing this day? Doing good. A bit sore from yesterday, but other than that everything is okay. Splendid. I was hoping you wouldn't be too injured from yesterday's trial, so to hear that is swell news. Do you recall me telling you that something important is happening? Yeah. I do. His mood darkened, ready for whatever task of utmost importance she may lay onto him. Is it happening now? Indeed it is. This requires that both you and Hato group together at the school entrance and move together to this location. Immediately after this call you will change into casual wear and unite with your senior. The casual wear being important for this specific task. Are you ready, Midoriya? He swallowed the knot in his throat. She sounded foreboding, darkness plagued her words like a toxic sickness in the olden days. Midoriya has only been her sidekick for a short time, yet already she's assigning both he and 𝗏𝗏 an assignment of what sounded to be very high on the priority list. Whatever it is and whatever it required of him, he must be ready. I am Ryukyu-sensei. Could hang up, change, and meet with 𝗏𝗏 as I asked. I will send her the directions to the meet-up location where I will find you both there. Until then, Midoriya. Bye for now. He hung up the line on his end as requested, making himself rise shakily onto his legs. They were sore indeed, but this sounded to be one of the more important objectives he will probably ever be given. The request for casual wear did poke at him a bit in an odd manner, but if that's what his mentor requested, then so be it. He wouldn't argue against her. Unless he wanted to take another trip off of the skyscraper, which in this case with his legs. Definitely not. At least not today. Deciding to take the elevator instead of the pain-inducing stairs, he called for the lift to begin his first task given to him. For the Ryukyu Hero Office. / Welcome to the 7-Star Ball Arcade. 𝗏𝗏 giddily cheered with a quick succession of clapping. I love coming here. 𝗏𝗏. Midoriya squeaked while staring up at the neon light of an arcade sign. It was an orange orb with 7 darker red stars pasted onto the front while riding a yellowish-colored cloud. The gears of his mind cranked as strong as they could into thinking it was all just a part of something much more important in terms of heroism. But judging by 𝗏𝗏's reaction and her constant hopping up and down, it wasn't. The whole way through he legitimately took it to his soul that what he was about to embark in was something far greater than he. Everything was set up in the correct manner to appear that way. Ryukyu's serious voice, the limited information on the task given to him. Even 𝗏𝗏's expression coming here was a bit toned down than her usual bubbly nature, but to arrive here, at a simple arcade, it felt like he had just built a house of cards 5 feet tall only for him to new instructed into knocking it down himself with a sweep of his foot. You are already here. Ryukyu's voice appeared to their side. She leisurely paced to the sidekicks with an easygoing tempo and little to no regard for anything outside of an easy vibe. Her clothes were simple, yet somehow she made them appear to look like they belonged on the cover of a modeling magazine. A red zip-up sweater the same color of her 𝗏𝗏 was halfway closed with the zipper a lavish golden hue. Black solid leggings comfortably accentuated the curves of her luscious body with all white sneakers on her feet. A silver chain with the medallion of a dragon's tooth hanging just over her bust, a plain white shirt exposed from the open sweater. Obviously not in her hero garments, the headband with claws and wings was absent, revealing the entirety of her face in absolute beauty. She's so pretty. Midoriya. The simplistic aspect of your outfit is rather charming. She complimented. He opted for a completely plain long-sleeve emerald green shirt with the cuffs hugging his wrists tightly, denim dark blue jeans with his usual red shoes. She turned to 𝗏𝗏. And you, as always the most adorable. The third year wore her usual forest green skirt with school lower garments of socks and shoes, the blazer replaced by 𝗏𝗏. Not wanting to appear wimpy or a bit lacking in the manliness department, Midoriya darted his eyes left and right to find something that wouldn't be considered embarrassing. Appealing to a member of the opposite CC wasn't his something that kept at the top of his priority list, yet at the same top, it wasn't exactly forgotten either. Now that he knew Ryukyu paced behind him at a mere centimeter distance, he made it look as if he was only interested in the games that depicted violence, warfare, and shoot-'em-up style machines. His eyes fell onto one that he thinks might be fun to try even with his mentor behind him. The sign had a dog mutated into Hell's version of a hound with skin peeling off in areas and fur patchy and rough. Teeth snarled in front of a ferocious muzzle with the eyes a pure white void of any life below. 2 plastic green assault rifles were attached to the mainframe by a black cable with another weapon in the middle, this one much larger than the previous 2 and rounder with the appearance of a sci-fi prototype. The title read at the top, Samantha's Slaughter, so, Izuku Midoriya, also known as Deku, enjoys games depicting a horror theme, does he? Not really, but this game looked interesting. Fetching for his wallet that he brought in the case his provisional license was required, he began to pull out currency to input to the device before a hand was laid onto his own. That won't be necessary. You are my sidekick, this is my invitation, therefore it is my obligation. It's just a game after all. Besides, Ryukyu held up a plastic card with the logo of the arcade over the front and a black magnet strip on the back. You need one of these. She inserted the card into the machine with a button now blinking signifying a token has been slotted. She then gave the card to Midoriya, who graciously placed the plastic rectangle into his wallet for future use. Putting away his wallet, he bopped a right fist over the button and retrieved one of the rifles. The screen to display a theater broken down and abandoned, holes in the ceiling with sunlight shining through. The player appeared to be front and center of the theater stage with 2 miniature staircases leading onto the stage. An American rifle from the Cold War era was loaded onto the screen with a guitar riff sounding the beginning of the game. Fetch me their souls. Neen. Not the puppies. 2 balls of lightning erupted in front of the player near the broken seating areas with 2 dogs, the same ones as the display, appearing and coming for the player. Midoriya raised the plastic rifle to the screen and pulled the trigger with a 3-round burst, firing at the enemies with real recoil bucking into his shoulder. That's a neat addition. More dogs began to spawn in overwhelming droves, which caused the player begin a backpedal towards safety and adding distance between them and danger. Midoriya did his best to keep up with the numerous amounts of dogs on his screen at once, a few of them biting at the screen and depleting the health bar by a few notches. Each dog exploded into a small burst of fire with yelps of dying pain, eventually concluding the end of the spree. I take your pain, I put my straw in it. Slurp and I drink it up. This character's a bit odd. Midoriya commented. Yes, he is quite the wild card, isn't he? Ryukyu replied. Though he is one of the 4 random characters you could have gotten, so you lucked out with this one. He's very entertaining. You've played this game before? On occasions. 𝗧𝗱 would at times request to be joined by either Hoshiko or myself, to which we can never deny. She pointed to the screen toward a box with question marks. Do take advantage of this item right here. You only have a few seconds left before the next assault begins. Midoriya shot the box, which prompted the character to move in the direction. It flipped open, a music box jingle being played with weapons flipping though in quick succession. The weapon flipping slowed down at the near end before a final armament became solid and floated for the taking. A few lights around the screen illuminated in appraisal with a cheering sound accompanying it. The weapon at the helm of the mainframe glowed for Midoriya to take in his grasp, a bit of weight falling onto his forearms. Can it be the 𝗔𝗓𝗧𝗏, the 𝗔𝗓𝗏 that's just for me? This game is actually kind of fun, Midoriya admitted to himself. The whole idea of blasting away the undead with a variety of weapon choices did certainly fit well with him in terms of a time passer. Aside from the fact that the recoil of the plastic weapon was slightly beginning to ache at his shoulder, he liked this game. The button on his right began to blink repeatedly, showing that another token had been inserted for the second player. He glanced over to see Ryukyu holding the secondary assault rifle at her shoulder level, a gentle smile on her face as she stared onto the screen. Immediately he took back whatever thoughts about this game he had before and rewrote them. He loved this game. This pizza is super duper cheesy and delicious. 𝗧𝗱 complimented with another chomp of her pepperoni pizza slice. The cheese hoped just a tad past her bottom lip, which made her wipe away the yellow residue with a fresh napkin. Midoriya silently chewed on his pizza slice before speaking after the contents have traveled down his throat. You know, all my time at I never knew this place was just a several-minute walk over here. Kind of strange nobody in my class has noticed. I wouldn't exactly call this location a new joint on the block, as some would like to name it. Ryukyu commented with her eyes fixated onto something else. But it was recently built within a short time. So perhaps it has not yet made it to the ears of the student population en masse. It will eventually, though. Midoriya nodded his head at her statement and continued eating his food. For the past hour and a half he and Ryukyu had been with one another so that she can bear witness to the topics of entertainment he took an interest in. They raced against each other in sports cars, defeated entire armies of pixelated mobsters in a side-scrolling beat-em-up game, and were even on the same team for a 15-minute laser tag session. He had fun undoubtedly, something that surprised him when it came to socializing with the mainly cold and stone dragoon hero. Unbeknownst to him, a subtle smile had crawled onto his face as he continued to stare at Ryukyu. Also unbeknownst to him was the secretary 𝗔𝗧𝗟𝗃, who secretly darted her eyes between Midoriya and Ryukyu with the mischievous little curl on her mouth that suckled onto the straw of a margarita. Every now and then she would blink while looking at the sidekick, then look to the main hero and blink again with her eyes turning a light pinkish shade. She continued to do this in an endless loop with the smile growing by every fraction of a second. Hato asked, "What have you been staring at for so long?" You of all people should know this by now." "Oh yeah. What is it?" Midoriya asked. Hato pointed to a claw machine game for her junior to follow. It was a simple machine, the outside white in color with a bright light illuminating the contents on the inside. Plushies of variable sizes and color were stuffed with heroes, celebrities, and even animals ranging from domestic to wild. Right in the middle of that giant pile, underneath the one at the top, Midoriya squinted, his gaze to find nothing but a sea of plushy heads, until at last he found what she had pointing to. It was Ryukyu herself in plushy form, but the wings behind her head were golden instead of black. It clicked in his head instantly that common to dragon physiology, the mythical creatures were attracted to the shine of jewelry and expensive pieces. Not only was the plushie about her, but the wings were specifically designed to attract eyes and onlookers alike. He can only imagine the draconian instinct inside of her to simply break the machine and take it for herself. "Every time I've been here I've never managed to grab hold of that doll," Ryukyu stated. "Of course I could care less that it's about me, egotistical worth is never something in my interest. But the golden color is simply perfect." "Yeah, that machine is really tricky," Hato said before taking another chomp. "I honestly believe the controller-to-claw coordination is a bit off, which is what makes it so strong. I don't think I've ever seen anybody else win at that game either." "Well yeah," Midoriya chimed. "Isn't there a myth that all arcade machines are you were saying?" 𝗔𝗧𝗟𝗃 stated. The boy stared into the void with brows furrowed, causing Ryukyu to snap in front of his eyes with her fingers. "Midoriya, are you okay? Did he black out?" Hato gently shook him on his shoulder, to which he gave no response. Eventually he shook his head out of the stupor and placed his pizza slice back down onto the plate below. Give me 1 second please." He stood up from his seat and disappeared into the crowd of arcade goers, leaving his companions behind and confused. In the smallest of windows between the sea of people, he caught sight of what appeared to be a very familiar sight of hair, ashy blonde at the top flowing beautifully. On top of that they wore an employee shirt of the arcade, which further drove his curiosity. Following the path that the employee took, he came to an opening in the middle of a 4-way path of games to find them standing in the open with a clipboard in hand and surveying the area. Their bottoms a solid black skirt with flats. The employee's eyes fell onto the boy with a smile growing on their face. "Izuku, Auntie Mitsuki?" he asked. "You work here?" "Not really work, more like overlook the operations, but yes, I am employed here. As a manager for the games floor." "Since when?" "It's rather recent. I was beginning to grow bored at home, what with Katsuki moving into the dorm system. It's not easy trying to find something to smack around the house just because they yelled for no reason." "Are you by any chance here with your classmates?" "Not really a classmate, more like a senior of mine. We're both sidekicks for Ryukyu, who's also here with us." "Oh yeah." Mrs. Bakugo jutted her hip. "Inko had told me that you were attending Ryukyu's office as her sidekick. Look at you. No longer the quirkless boy, are you?" "No. I hate to be the kind of person that's shady, I guess you would call it, but do you think you can, maybe, get something for me?" "What do you need?" "Bye. We'll see you when you get back." Hato yelled happily with 𝗔𝗧𝗟𝗃 at her side, the duo walking down the street together. "Farewell for now," Ryukyu replied with a wave back. She was waiting for the return of her younger sidekick, who said that he was speaking to one of the members in management about something important. Whatever it was she wasn't told, but at the entrance is where she told him she would wait. Ryukyu sighed as the afternoon sun began to slowly dip behind one of the buildings. Today was a fun day for her, in all honesty, mainly seeing for herself what Midoriya's interests were when it came to arcade machines. Hato's were a bit more energetic and exhausting due to how lively they all were, which perfectly synced with her own personality. But Midoriya did have a variable palette that ranged in different colors and topics. Something that is always amicable in a hero. "I'm back, Ryukyu-sensei." His voice popped up from behind with the sound of a door closing. The heroine turned to her new comrade, finding him shaking with his hands behind his back. "There you are. Is everything all right?" "Yeah, definitely. I was just speaking with a manager about something. Not really a big deal." "Splendid. Well then, shall we join the others? Before we go, I'd like to give you something." He stuttered. I just want to say thank you for bringing me here. I had fun. With you. Not with you specifically, but with you and the others. As did I. Entertainment is always much more enjoyable when in the presence of friends. So, with that being said, Midoriya shakily protruded an item from behind his back slower than an automaton that hasn't been greased. He held the item out to Ryukyu with arms more wobbly than noddles flaying in the open air. Here you go." Ryukyu open mouth stared at the item in awe, unable to find the words of gratitude for it. She took the new gift into the cusps of both of her hands, feeling the soft material mesh underneath her fingers. A pleasant growl emanated from within her throat as a smile overtook her face in full effect. It was Ryukyu herself, in plushy form. With the wings behind her head golden, instead of black. "Ping Ryukyu." Ms. Hoshiko called from her desk in the entry office. Light footstep can be heard clinking against the floor of the elevator before becoming muffled once they reach the carpet of the office. "The officials from the hero board are here." "Coming right out, thank you," the heroine called back. She hurriedly typed away at her keyboard, finishing the last remnants of an email back to Fatgum. "Good to see that you and I are in agreement that 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘's actions during my patrol with Deku was uncalled for. I am grateful that you see that he was brash, rude, and forceful towards the boy. However, even with these emotions, I must not allow them to cloud my mind when it comes to professionalism. Bubble Girl has told me of a breakthrough regarding the case in which we are all investigating, so we can expect to see each other shortly in a conference. Until then, take care of yourself and your sidekicks." Ryukyu forwarding the email to her comrade, she closed out the page, turned off her monitor, and swiveled out from her chair. Ryukyu leisurely paced over to her doorway, passing by the television with a live broadcast of a news report as well as a newly mounted thin shelf on the wall. Quickly halting on her pace, she did a slight backpedal and turned to face the shelf hanging just above her head. Sitting atop of the shelf, comfortable with legs over the side, was plushy Ryukyu, wings outstretched in all of their golden glory. She reached up with her right hand and kneaded one of the wings softly, accompanying the action with a pleasurable growl of the same caliber. After a few seconds of observing her special gift, she turned away and resumed for the door. Growing closer, she can hear the voices of two females conversing with one another and exited from her personal office. Two individuals, one female and one male, with the former wearing an all-black female's business attire and the latter wearing a suit of the same color, standing just in front of Ms. Hoshiko's desk. The secretary and female businesswoman were in a conversation with each other until the heroine's presence is noted. "Ryukyu?" the woman said, with both she and the male bowing slowly. "It is a pleasure to be here with you today." "The pleasure is all mine, miss," Ryukyu replied. "Thank you for coming." Both individuals arose from their bow, a brown 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 bag hanging from the female's left ball of a hand. "I hope I won't take too much of your time with these documents. Shame that visitations such as these must be done in person instead of through technological means. It would be much easier that way." "Agreed, though I don't mind too much. It is just paperwork to sign after all about the actions I've made that have been noticed by the Hero Board. Nothing too taxing. Thankfully. Now then, let's get started as to not occupy your day any further." The female lifted the bag onto Ms. Hoshiko's desk with a light thud and rub of the rough material. She unclicked the latch leading into the main compartment and pulling out a light blue folder with little to no contents aside from paper in the folder. Opening the folder revealed a thin stack of papers in the right compartment, to which she slid out before fishing for a black pen. "The first paper is, let me see, in regards to the donation you made to the fundraiser regarding quirkless children." Ryukyu took the paper into her right hand with the black pen in her left, placing her signature at the bottom over a thick and obvious line. She gave the document to Ms. Hoshiko, who documented the paper into the database. And then, this is for your successful halt against the bank robbers just a few weeks ago that stopped a theft of over 50 million yen. Another paper signed, another document recorded. This one's for your sidekick 𝗔𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘's involvement in the marathon for recognition of disabled heroes. Yet another signature. Yet another documentation. Everything was going swell, and each little signature would impact Ryukyu's standing in the hero board. 𝗧𝗱𝗃 did significantly well in the marathon she participated in, ending in the top 25 spots out of nearly 600 total participants. Ryukyu can care less about her own performances, the ones regarding her disciples making a happy feeling well inside of her hearts like a flame being added with an abundance of sticks. She couldn't think of anything wrong, and this is for Deku's absolutely utter failure in apprehending the purse thief. Ryukyu's smile dropped instantly into a flat line, along with the pleasantry inside of her heart. "Excuse me, your new sidekick, Deku?" the woman said while holding the paper in her hand for the heroine to take. "And his encounter with the purse thief on Monday. The police have the record attached to the back as well if you'd like to read it." Ryukyu took the paper in hand and flipped it to see an official documentation of the police attached with a paper clip. She skimmed through the record of the events that day but found something that struck at her side like a bothersome sharp object. "None of this is anything like you just told me. I beg your pardon." The dragoon hero cleared her throat, placed a finger up to a section of the record and read out loud. "On Monday of this week, the new sidekick Deku out of you. In attendance of the Ryukyu Hero office alongside 𝗔𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 of the same institution, encountered a thief that snatched the purse of a nearby female. Deku pursued after the thief in an attempt for apprehension and was pushed aside by the thief. Nearby surveillance cameras recorded the event, and Deku was seen on the ground over his knees, frozen to the spot and unmoving. Seconds later, Ryukyu takes action, her attempt being successful unlike the former. The thief has been charged with petty theft and a fine issued by the court. Yes, that's exactly what I just said. No, it's not. Ryukyu placed the duo of papers onto the desk with a bit of force, creating the smallest of air waves. "You said that Deku's performance during the patrol was an absolutely utter failure, but the paper does not once state those words. It merely says that he froze to his spot on the ground. That's it." The woman scoffed, giving a side look to her partner before facing Ryukyu again. "I am only stating what the media has listed onto the social web. They have video of the whole event in multiple angles. To say that Deku merely froze to the spot is a vast understatement. I'm not one to make judgmental statements such as this, but personally I think that it was a mistake enrolling him." Quietly as she could, Ms. Hoshiko lifted the receiver of the desk telephone with a finger idly hovering over one of the buttons. Ryukyu glared at the woman with her slit pupils emanating a mild hostility. "Do tell, what makes you think it was a mistake in employing that young man into my office? Have you not seen him during the sports festival? His quirk alone is a heavy drawback on his body, and I can't even imagine what good that type of destructive power is going to do in a busy district such as the city's. On top of that, if he just simply froze because a simple thief pushed him aside, I wouldn't even begin to trust somebody such as he with my own life. He should just stick to education for now because clearly he isn't ready. Deku froze on the spot because he hasn't experienced something simple as a purse thief. Clearly your head has been hiding under a rock for the longest time, because if you've been paying attention to events other than the mainstream of the sports festival, then you would know what he's gone through alongside his classmates. The USJ, the training camp incident, and even dealing with the surmounted lessons because of All Might's forced retirement. Might I add the fact that he was also there at Hosu during the incident regarding Stain and the monster attack. You expect him to instantaneously adapt from fighting for his life and those around him to stopping a mere petty thug. I expect him to perform like a true hero and stop anything that comes in his way. If he isn't capable of doing so, then he should quit and find a different profession. Tell me, is there anything life-changing that you've done that anybody is going to remember? Aside from being an annoying hussy who clearly doesn't diverge from the path of popular media. Let me take a gander and say that you were the type of student in high school to spread rumors that did not contain the smallest bit of fact at all, And when the rumors finally came back to you saying that you were the one who started it, you denied every bit for your own safety. A snake shedding their skin and repeating the 𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟𝗧. Correct. The woman said nothing as she stared into Ryukyu's eyes, who in turn stared back with a quiet intensity. Tension can practically be cut with a chef's knife as the two women deadlocked their gaze onto the other, unwavering from the competition. Eventually the businesswoman blinked first after what seemed like an eternity, her eyes watery and itchy from the prolonged exposure. It seems I was right. This doesn't mean anything, the woman said while rubbing her eyes. Deku is still incompetent. The next time I hear you say my sidekick's name, it better be backed up with words of approval and praise. Deku is my student, and I am proud to own up to any mistakes anybody says that he makes because I know what his heart can hold. The world will eventually know just how bright this star can grow. I just hope you won't be so ignorant as to be blinded by it. Ryukyu roughly etched her signature onto the paper and slid it towards the woman. We are done here. Good day. Nah, I still have papers for you to sign, the woman said to the back of a disappearing Ryukyu behind her door. Angrily, she began stomping her way towards the heroine before Ms. Hoshiko stood up from her chair with receiver raised. You can either willingly go down the elevator yourselves, or I can have the security detail pleasantly escort you out of the building. They haven't been doing much besides standing around for a while, so they could use something to entertain themselves. So what's it going to be? Ms. Hoshiko asked. We'll take our leave, the man said while grabbing hold of his partner's arm. Come on. Let's not cause trouble. Get your hand off me, the woman snarled while shaking herself loose from his grip. She hurriedly stuffed the papers into her bag in disorderly fashion and hurried for the elevator furiously. Inside of her personal office, Ryukyu leaned up against the door with back on the flat surface. She took a slow and deep breath into her nostrils before releasing it back out from her mouth to calm the nerves. Her heart angrily in the cage of her easy for violence and aggression, but she knew that it was not the right method to deal with that woman. No matter how badly she wanted to claw at her face for slandering her disciple. Speaking of the sidekick, Ryukyu looked to her plushy self and walked over to the shelf mounted on the wall. Innocently, it sat there overlooking the entire layout of her office with golden wings sticking out like a sore thumb. She can still see the face he wore whenever he gifted the doll to her, his cheeks an embarrassing pink and himself on the verge of flopping over, similar to a fish trying to balance on its tail with no success. Albeit nervous and unprepared, she had to admit, he still in some bizarre manner held a handsomeness factor even during his ordeal of gifting her the doll. Although his lips quivered in nervousness and eyes shaking behind their protective layers, he was still eye-catching to her in a young man's way of doing so. His hair matching his pupils was a trait that she thought was masterfully crafted by his creators above. Smiling, she reached up for the plush and took it in her hand, bringing it back down to just beneath her CST level. She rubbed her thumbs against the soft material with a soothing growl vibrating in her cords. Ryukyu loved the gift, and somehow found herself loving it more every time it correlated to him. Already she was looking forward to the day that he returned for yet another trial of improving his strength, that day being tomorrow in the afternoon. If only she had the ability of fast-forwarding time. Then all would be pleasant. Though there are compromises, one of them popping into her head with a bright light. Peering over her right shoulder to her desk, her eyes fell onto the phone laying face down. Midoriya fiddled with the pencil in his right hand as he patiently waited for everybody else to finish jotting the notes down from the presentation up front. Midnight slowly walked up and down the aisles of the seating arrangement, overlooking some of the students to make sure they get everything they needed before continuing. She stopped at Ojiro's desk and quietly gave him advice while pointing at his notebook, to which he nodded his head in gratitude, erasing a portion of his notes and correcting the error he previously made. The successor couldn't exactly hear what it was specifically they had done wrong, but just from the small bits he was able to pick up on, it had to do with the date and timeline of the art piece. Although his physical body was seated in the desk of the classroom, his mind was drifting way higher than the metaphorical cloud nine of the heavens. Ever since his social event with Heido, Ryukyu, and Ms. Hoshiko, he kept replaying the end of the event specifically in the projector of his mind. To see Ryukyu's face whenever he gifted her the plush was like another event on its own. Her smile was so appealing and for the first time noticed something about the dragoon hero that's never noticed before. Upon close, and emphasis on the close inspection, if one looked carefully at her smile they could see the smallest sign of a sharp tooth poking out from her top lip whenever she smiled. It was barely visible even with the close distance between them, but he caught it. And it was burned into the back of his mind forever. Not that he minded. Dude, she's so hot. Ryukyu's a baby. Midoriya perked his head up at the sound of Ryukyu's name coming from his right. He glanced over to see 𝗧𝗧𝗟 and Kaminari whispering to another, with the latter holding a phone with a picture. Although it was barely visible due to the brightness toned down and the angle at which the phone was held, a photo of Ryukyu standing proud with hands on her hips can be seen. But judging by the way Kaminari's finger kept roaming about her 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟, they weren't looking at the heroine as a protector of society. More focused on her prominent assets of an ample size. It irked Midoriya slightly to see his mentor being spoken about in such a manner, and instantaneously he wanted to take action for himself. That thought quickly being reprimanded by his more rational side of the brain with the bite of his tongue. He saw Midnight beginning to stroll down the aisle in which Kaminari and 𝗧𝗧𝗟 were located, knowing she would take action against the boys. But the lightning-streaked male whipped his phone back inwards just before the teacher looked up to catch any remnant of a device. 𝗧𝗧𝗟 fixated his eyes to the front, acting as if he never paid any attention to anything else other than the material. Once Midnight moved past the boys and into another aisle, Kaminari checked over his shoulder, making sure the coast was clear. Once it was, he pulled out his phone again to show the tape user a different photo of the same hero, only this time at a side angle, exposing an almost too revealing angle in Ryukyu's 𝗔𝗨𝗧 running up the side of her leg. Annoyed that Midnight didn't catch the boys, Midoriya balled a fist around his pencil as he tried his hardest to calm down. It was just a photo. Why is a simple photo making him so flustered and angry at others for commenting it? Boiling down the facts, the only liable one was that the photo is about his employing hero and not theirs. The disciple in him calling for action to bring respect to her name. Check it out, dude, her legs, so hot bro, it's unreal. I can only imagine her bub bro. Stop. Midoriya slammed his fist onto the desk, breaking a good chunk of the wooden portion off into splintered pieces. Immediately the students in the class turned to the commotion, with Hagakure in the front slightly yelping in surprise. Stop talking about Ryukyu like that. She's more than just a model for you guys to ogle at. She's a hero with great standing and she doesn't deserve to be reduced to an image of a hot woman in a 𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟 by idiots like you. Midoriya. Midnight quickly scolded. She whipped her flogger towards the door. Outside. Immediately. But Midnight Sensei out. No. Midoriya looked incredulously at his teacher before taking the scenario into his mind. He looked around to his other classmates to find them all staring back at him, wide-eyed and shocked, frightened by the sudden outrage and green pops of energy around his body. Uraraka held a mouth up to her hand, disturbed by the action, with Ida in absolute surprise and disbelief. He looked in front of him to find even Bakugo had turned his head just enough to have one eye facing the successor with a raised eyebrow. Even Midnight held a fistful of her clothing ready to tear off for somnambulist to pour out in effect. Knowing he was in the wrong for acting inappropriately, Midoriya exhaled while growling at himself in disapproval. Not looking to anybody else, he packed up his belongings as quietly and gently as he could into his backpack, slinging the straps over his shoulders. He took the walk of shame in front of the class for the door and exited into the silent halls of view, where he found nothing but the possible ghosts invisible to his naked eye. With the door shut behind him, he sighed and slumped down on the wall to his right, awaiting for his instructor to come forth with his punishment. The weight of what he did finally sunk completely onto his shoulders along with guilt. Seconds of his wallowing turned into minutes, turned into what felt like an eternity or very similar to it. By now he can hear his classmates inside conversing with each other, most likely about the material given to them, or obviously about what happened a few minutes prior. The sound grew louder for a moment due to the door opening with heels clicking outward and the door closing again behind them. He looked up to find Midnight gazing back down at him, and surprising him when she took a seat in front of him with legs crossed. Midnight Sensei. Midoriya, she said back. I know of your attendance with Ryukyu as your work studies option, But do you think it was okay for what you did just now? He sighed deeply. No, it wasn't. So why do it then? Kaminari and 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗧. They were ogling at her on his phone and you didn't see them. Even if you didn't see them, you could have at least heard them. My hearing's been messed up because of a previous sickness in the past 2 weeks, so them going unnoticed is completely my fault. I apologize for that. But even with my inability to pick up on the boys, you had no right to activate your quirk in a school environment outside of an authorized training area. Anybody else and you would have been expelled without second thoughts. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Good. Because for starters, I do have to report this incident. The good news is that I won't be reporting this to Principal Nizu. Too much paperwork to go through and it's near the end of the week, so no thanks. And the bad news? You might be unaware of this, but whenever students participating in work studies are involved in an incident at school or outside of their agency, we have to immediately advise their employers. So, she flipped her hand upward with the palm exposed. Phone, please. Midoriya's heart dropped like a stone with a knot forming in his throat. He shakily fished for his phone hidden in the left pocket of his and gave it to Midnight with the screen unlocked. She held the device at an angle to show him in clear display that she wouldn't go through his personal files, instead going immediately for his contact list and phone numbers. She scrolled through the list to find Ryukyu's and tapped on the dial option beside her name. Midnight gave the student a heart attack by placing the phone in speaker mode. His breath grew shaky, stuttered in an effort to even raise his 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗧𝗟. A bead of sweat trickled down the right side of his forehead. Clicked Midoriya. Ryukyu's voice happily answered. I was just about to contact you to see how you were doing. Though your lunch PRD shouldn't be until another 15 minutes, shouldn't it? At least from what 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 told me. Hello, Ryukyu. Midnight said. It's Midnight. Midnight. It's been far too long since our last encounter. It has. Maybe we can get together this weekend and go shopping if you're available. I'll review my schedule and check in with you, though I am curious as to why you're contacting me through Midoriya's phone. Is something the matter? Well, Midoriya had an incident during my class PRD in which he snapped at a few of his classmates angrily, while also activating his quirk. Ryukyu? Midnight asked. Are you still there? Where is he now? Sitting right in front of me. Though it looks like he's too afraid to even say something. Actually, I don't think he's even breathing. Oh dear. Put him on the phone, please. Oh, he can hear you. It's on speaker. Midoriya. Answer immediately, please. Midoriya loosened the collar of his shirt around his neck for breathing space, yet it still felt constricted around his skin. Why yes, Ryukyu-sensei? Is it true that you acted hostile towards your own classmates? Yeah, but I have a reason for it. Whatever that reason is, it is not valid. You should never act out against your classmates unless they have done something that has affected you directly. Is that applicable in this case? And no, but then your reason is invalid. Normally I would simply overlook a minor breakthrough, but the fact that you activated your quirk with the intention to throwing out an attack is something that I cannot ignore. Your punishment will be in effect the next time you arrive at the office. It will consist they were talking about you in a bad XL manner. Midoriya interrupted. Midoriya. Midnight quietly scolded. Don't interrupt her, those are awful manners. No, I refuse to stay quiet. 2 of the guys in my class were looking at photos of you and talking about how sexually appealing you were, and it bothered me. You're my teacher, and to hear them talking about you like that didn't sit right, so I took action. I know I should have said something to Midnight-sensei like raising my hand or addressing them directly, but I just moved. That's the only excuse I can give you. I moved. I didn't want them talking about you like that anymore, so I took action for myself. It sounds selfish, I know, but at the time it felt like the only right thing to do. I didn't mean to activate my quirk either. I guess I just let my emotions get the best of me at that moment. But you're my teacher. To hear other people talk about my teacher that way, it bothered me a lot. I'm sorry for snapping at my classmates like that during the PRD. Whatever your punishment is, I'll do my best. I deserve it. *sniff *youth *sniff Ryukyu-sensei. Midoriya asked. Once again the silence made him feel uneasy as he adjusted his seating on the floor. Your punishment will be issued 2 hours after your school day ends. I will see you on the roof of your dorm. Until then, goodbye Midoriya. Midoriya nervously paced back and forth on the roof of his dorm building awaiting the inevitable punishment. Ryukyu's voice at the end of their call earlier sounded like it held no room for anything aside from business and seriousness. In his mind he was beginning to play out what different types of punishments will be given to him. The most prominent and obvious one is that he was about to be dropped from a near astronomical height again for him to act on the dime of his thinking. Other forms of punishment he could think of were grueling sparring sessions, measly community service tasks, or even sorting out the paperwork with Ms. Hoshiko. He has not yet sparred with Ryukyu, but he imagined it to be dangerous considering her strength and skill. A distant and heavy whoosh was heard as he braced himself for the arriving dragon. He looked up to the skies to find Ryukyu in her mythical form coming down from her height with slow and timed flaps of her giant wings. Her demeanor was stone cold in her draconian form, sending a shiver down his spine with an electric feeling of anguish. It didn't help either that was taking her time in descending to him slowly, most likely in an effort to play cruel tricks in his mind. Once she did land, it was gentle as to not disturb the students in the building until reverting back to humanoid form. The sound of boots crunching against gravel made his teeth grit and nervous, growing closer to him with planned-out steps. Ryukyu's face was made of cold rock staring into her disciple's emeralds with her own yellow slits. The entire duration of her walking towards him, her arms were crossed underneath her bust, causing the mounds to be slightly pushed up unknowingly. It clearly wasn't the right time to think about those, but as Midoriya looked into her eyes he also noticed how ample her melons were. They were very sizable even if she didn't have her arms crossed underneath. But he quickly shook away his mind of any perverted thought to make room for the pain she's about to bring unto him. Ryukyu-sensei, he nervously started. I am sorry about what happened earlier. As you should be, she said coldly, her words piercing his soul sharper than a samurai sword crafted by the finest smith in all of Japan. But I'm ready for your punishment. It's my duty to take responsibility for what I've done due to my own misjudgment. So please give me dash in a swift action. His words were halted mid-sentence by her. Ryukyu had enclosed the distance between them before he can even notice as he felt a warmth surrounding him on all angles. This warmth had to be some sort of scheme she had constructed as deception or a smokescreen. Because in all reality, what sort of punishment consists of a hug? He squeaked. Ryukyu pleasantly hummed as she tightened her arms around his stiff body from the sudden movement. He was warm and soft, combined with the pleasurable odor from his newly washed clothes. A few bits of his hair tickled her cheek as she bit down the urge to giggle. Several moments of the embrace later, she backed away from him to find his face had even overtaken by the complete and lone color of cherry red. This sight making her chuckle instead. Echa, Midoriya, Ryukyu said. Thank you for doing what you've done. Although I do not condone violence against any of your classmates, I am thankful that you took action against the students speaking wrongly of me. You have my gratitude. And the punishment? That was the punishment. For being a good sidekick, of course. Midoriya. She snapped fingers in front of his face, given no response. Midoriya. Are you alright? Please say something. Best punishment ever.